Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3, The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios on a Titans Monday. Ian is here today. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
That wasn't pretty yesterday, was it?
No, not really.
Not really.
No.
Not really pretty yesterday. And it's hilarious because in both six-pack picks and on the award-winning pregame show, I predicted the game. I said 31-7. So I was off a little bit, 27-17. But I said, here's what's going to happen. I said the Titans are going, it's going to be 10-7 Chargers at the half. It's going to be a close first half. And then the Titans will get blown out in the second half. And I'll be darned if that's not exactly what happened yesterday. It was close in the first half. Come back out for halftime. Titans are driving. I told my dad on that opening drive of the second half, I said, they better score a touchdown here or else this is going to get ugly. And then bang, just like that, they kick a field goal. Here comes a kickoff return. And here come the Chargers. And it's crazy because the final score was only 10. And at points in the second half, the game wasn't completely out of reach. But did anybody actually feel in their hearts in the second half like the Titans were going to win that game? Did anybody feel in the first half, even when they were winning, that they were actually going to win that game? I didn't. And what's crazy is this game against the Chargers felt like pretty much every other game this season against a real team. And when you played the Buffalo Bills, it was close at halftime. You had a lead. Blew you out in the second half. Against the Lions, again, they were scoring their touchdowns, but you were scoring your touchdowns, and then you blow it right before the end of the half, and then they blow you out in the second half. And it's crazy about these second half blowouts because I sit back and I'm like, man, it doesn't feel like it happened gradually. It just feels like, 1, 2, 3, okay, yep, game's over. And again, these are close games at halftime. But here's what I will say to every Titan fan out there. Ian, I believe the Titans are 2-7 now, right?
I believe that is correct, yeah.
Okay, that's 9 games. 8 more to go. That's the message today. 8 more of these to go. That's the best I've got for you. Again, I've never been a parent before. I will be one very soon. And I know the feeling. I've seen this. The parents put the kid in soccer or basketball or t-ball and the kid hates it. And I hope my kid likes it, but who knows? But when the kid is decided he doesn't want to play that sport anymore and the parents are just looking at the schedule saying, hey, just 8 more games to go and then you never have to play t-ball again. But again, that's all I got for you right now. 8 more games of watching this garbage. Team stinks, coach stinks, GM stinks, owner stinks, quarterback stinks. That was the most lopsided 10-point win I think I've ever seen in my life. It might as well have been a 100-point victory for the Chargers, the way it felt. It never felt like the Titans were going to win that game. And again, I said verbatim, hey, it's going to be close in the first half, and then the Chargers will come out, blow them out in the second half, and voila. Not only are the Titans poorly constructed, no right tackle, no real pass rush, injured corners, run down defensive tackles and backup running backs, using premium picks on, again, run down DTs. They also aren't really getting any better. You know, that's, I hate to say it, like, they're not getting any better. It's the same problems all year. You can't pass protect. You can't cover a kick. You can't compete at halftime. And again, at some point, we're going to have to do an evaluation of what's going on with Brian Callahan at halftime because these games are close. And then all of a sudden, they go in the locker room and they come out and it becomes an ass kicking immediately once they kick the ball off. And he'll tell you, well, you know, on this one, this didn't happen. And in this game, that didn't happen. And in all I know is that you went to the lead, into the locker room with the lead at Buffalo, and they came out, blew you out in the second half. All I know is it was a close game in the first half yesterday against the Chargers. And again, I never expected the Titans to win, so I wasn't surprised when this happened. But they just came up, blew you out. It's all the same. And if you want to keep making excuses, you can. That's your business, not mine. But nobody seems to bring this up. The Chargers were a worse team than the Titans were last year. A worse team. And they straight housed you yesterday. Again, they picked 5th last year. You picked 7th. You played them in Nashville and beat them last year. And they are eons away from where you are. And nobody seems to bring that up. I knew that last week's win meant absolutely nothing because you played a minor league team. And this week you played a major league team and you got another major league whiff of reality. The only good news I have from yesterday is I think Simmons played pretty well. That's really all I have for Simmons. I mean, look, I know I've been on his ass, but it does kind of feel like Simmons is growing up a little bit, and it does seem like Simmons is playing like a highly paid defensive tackle. I mean, again, I thought that the play before halftime, I thought it was bull crap. We'll get into that, you know, the officiating and all of that, but I thought it was a credible play by Simmons. He was being held. He gets around. He smacks Herbert in the arm. The ball comes. I mean, Simmons played his butt off yesterday. Now, I'm not so sure how much I enjoy Jeffrey Simmons rocking on the plane, which the Titans put up on social media. He got on the plane with a Jeffrey Simmons t-shirt on and a Jeffrey Simmons hat on. I'm not sure exactly how I feel about that, but again, hey, he played well. Everybody else? And the other good news from yesterday is New England won, New Orleans won, and Carolina won. We got to root for the Giants. We got to root for the Dolphins tonight on Monday Night Football. We got to start rooting for these teams so that you can get the number 1 pick. But as far as hope for the season, no. Hope for the future, you don't have a quarterback. You don't have a coach you trust. You don't have a GM that seems to make any good moves. You don't have an owner who seems to really understand how to build a successful program. Don't really know what to tell you. And you, the Titan fan, you're paying for the mistakes this team made in March and April. Because this Titans team shouldn't be that bad, but they are. Again, the Chargers were worse than you last year. And all of a sudden, because they hired a real coach who runs that entire operation over there, the Chargers are significantly better than you. The Titans will not beat Minnesota this week. They will not. They don't have a right tackle, and Minnesota blitzes every play. They won't beat Houston because Danico Autry himself will have 13 sacks across 2 games against the Titans. They won't beat Washington because Washington got the good general manager from San Francisco that has a clue. And they won't beat Cincinnati because there is absolutely no way that Joe Burrow is losing to the Titans. So there is a shot, just by that math alone, that you can win 3 more games, 2 versus Jacksonville and 1 against Indianapolis. 5 wins. That's the max at this point right now. What a banner year. I've said my piece. Do you guys know what I think? You guys know. That I'm Callahan, and I don't really think it's ever fair to one and done a coach. But it's more and more obvious week after week that this organization doesn't have a clue. Isn't it obvious when you turn on the TV and you watch another football game and you see somebody make a play and you think, wasn't that guy on the Titans? When you turn on your own games and there's a one series of the game where Bud Dupree gets a sack, Bud Dupree gets a stop for a 7-yard loss, and Bud Dupree gets another sack. And it's like, wait a minute. Wasn't he on the Titans? Or Khalif Raymond almost sets an NFL record for punt return yards in a game against the Titans. And wasn't he on the Titans? Or Malik Willis gets the game ball when they come in and smoke you in your own house. And it's like, Malik? And it happens every week. Then you turn on the other games, and there's Danico Autry on Sunday Night Football. So I know this operation doesn't have a clue. I told you guys that in January when she technically promoted Rand. I don't know exactly to blow it all up. But I'm also aware that those changes probably aren't coming now, if they come at all. That's the real question. Will they come at the end of the year? As I said at the beginning, 8 more games to go. 8 more. That's it. Can we do this together? 8 more games. And let me say this. If they keep the whole operation intact in 8 games after finishing 3-14, and they keep Rand Carthon, and they keep Chad Brinker, and they keep Brian Callahan, and they do the 8 games from now, you can go root for another team. And I will not hold that against you. Robbie Stanley grew up here. As many of you know, he roots for the Green Bay Packers. I asked him one time, I said, Robbie, why do you root for the Green Bay Packers? And he said, because I gave up on the Titans around the time that Vince Young threw his pads in the stands, and I had enough of Jeff Fisher. And you know what? I think that's valid. So I ask all you Titan fans out there, lock arms with me. I've already given away my tickets for Sunday to the Vikings. Maybe I'll go to another game this season. I don't know. Probably not. We're going to have to waste the rest of our life, or waste the rest of this year of our life, a whole calendar year, because Amy went Leroy Jenkins and fired the whole operation and thought she knew what she was doing, and clearly she doesn't. So just let's lock arms for 8 more games. Live through this, and then see if they grow a brain at the end of the year. And if not, you can go root for another team. But that's where we are. 8 more games to go. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. I do think the Titans got hosed yesterday. And yet at the same time, I don't want to hear the excuse making, because I don't think it mattered that much. We'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game.
2nd and 10. Herbert lost the football. It's loose.
Right now it's a fumble.
No whistle. And it is returned all the way by Roger McCreary.
Yeah, it looked like Jeffrey Simmons. He goes in, gets the strip sack.
A fumble recovered by Tennessee for a touchdown.
Let's take a look. He's going against Zion Johnson. Herbert steps up. Oh, that's a fumble.
They were smart to not blow the play dead. They let it go. Simmons, the sack, the forced fumble, and the return for a touchdown by McCreary. Welcome back. It has been ruled an incomplete pass. No turnover, no touchdown. Dean Blandino, do you agree?
I agree. It doesn't have to be an overhand pass. Herbert's arm gets hit, but he's going to actually, you can see control. Once that hand starts forward, that starts the forward passing motion. That's a good overturn. Officials did a nice job letting it play out on the field, and then you have the video to be able to tell that the hand did come forward with control.
Explanation you got on the overturn call, and what were your thoughts on it?
I thought it was going to stand on the field. They initially told me that it was going to stand, and they took another look at it as I walked away. And then as I came back, they told me it was going to be overturned. And that was all the explanation I got. I'll let you guys decide what you think the call should have been, but I don't want to lose any money.
Okay. So, as you know, I want the Titans to lose, and I want everybody to know that on the front end. I want the Titans to fire everybody, and I want the number 1 pick of the draft. So losing is what I was rooting for yesterday, but I saw that play, and I got up out of my seat when it happened, and I watched the replay, and I know what the rule is. Like, again, I'm not Dean Blandino. I'm not Mike Pereira. I'm not Gene Steratore, but I know what the rule is. If you're watching the stream, I'm holding a Propel bottle in my hand right now. It's coming forward, and I've got full control of it. And you can see, not a fumble. But if this bottle in my hand starts to wiggle, even if my hand's going forward, but the bottle is moving because it is hit by contact, that is a fumble. I saw the play in live time, and I thought, I think that's a fumble. Like, I saw it happen in live time. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's a fumble. I think that's a touchdown. They didn't blow it dead, which was the right thing to do. There was a similar situation in Jacksonville, Minnesota yesterday where Mac Jones was clearly down on replay, but they didn't blow it dead. They let Minnesota run it into the end zone, and then they showed the replay, and they didn't even have a review. The white hat just came up and said, after an expedited review, the runner was down by contact, first down Jacksonville. And I'm like, great, worked perfectly. So I see it in live time. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's a fumble. But again, let's see. So then they show the replay. And as you could hear, Fox's JV commentator, Jonathan Vilma, who, holy crap, does he suck. We don't get him very often, but my God, he's awful. But even he's like, I think that's a fumble. Now, take that with a grain of salt because Jonathan Vilma doesn't even know how to pronounce Chigakonkwo's last name. But he says a fumble. Then they go to commercial, they come back, and everybody on Fox is like, nope, good call, refs. And I couldn't believe it. Could not believe it. And Brian Callahan went crazy on the sidelines, and he should have. And I think the Titans got completely and totally screwed.
The ball looked like it was starting to come loose, didn't it not?
The ball came loose.
It was
Think
starting
of it like a tooth.
A little wobbly, starting to get loose. After that, that's it.
It's
a
a
fumble.
If it's coming loose, then you're not throwing the ball. If you jar it loose, that's a fumble. Again, think of it like a tooth. Again, if you can kind of pull on your tooth a little bit and it doesn't move, you've got control of your tooth. If you pull on your tooth a little bit, it starts wiggling out of there, that's a fumble. And that was wiggling out of Herbert's hands. That being said, I don't want to hear too much about the fumble. I think the rule sucks, and I think the league chooses how they go about deciding when it's an incomplete pass and deciding when it's a fumble. And look, I thought a little bit of this at the time when Josh Dobbs had his at the end of the Jacksonville game in 2022. But I think that the league probably does sit there and think, you know what? Yeah, we'd rather have Jacksonville in the playoffs. We'd rather have Trevor Lawrence in the playoffs. We could put that on TV than have Josh Dobbs. Because 3 weeks later, Buffalo played Cincinnati in an AFC divisional game, and the exact same thing happened to Josh Allen. And if Cincinnati recovers the ball, the game is over. Like, not even close. Like, the game is over at that point. They went to commercial, they came back, and they said incomplete pass. Why? Because I think the NFL sitting there thinking it's more advantageous for the NFL for them to have Buffalo continue on in a playoff game that might be close. They'd rather have an exciting playoff game than a blowout one. That said, I don't want to hear like as if this one call is why the Titans lost this game the same way they lose pretty much every game. You know, after the game was over, I'm on Twitter and I see Calvin Ridley's thoughts on the overturned fumble. Like, seriously, we need to care what Calvin Ridley says? So first off, it was a fumble. Secondly, the Titans got screwed, and I need to know more about how the sausage is made in terms of how the NFL decides this stuff. It is an integrity of the game issue. But third, I don't think it really drastically changed the game that much.
Did we ever?
I think you still would have lost and got blown out no matter what.
Did we really
then,
see an angle on TV that showed anything definitive?
No, but the pool reporter talked to the replay official in New York, and the replay official told the pool reporter that they have some super secret angle that showed them that he had control of the ball. Again, I saw what I needed to see.
Why can't they show that on TV?
Confirm the call on the field.
It's like the Forsberg thing in overtime in the playoffs. At least show it. If you got it, show it.
I will tell you, I saw enough on the replay that they showed on Fox to say call confirmed. But fourth, I really thought Brian Callahan should have pushed back more. Again, we played that cut when we came back. And Brian Callahan was asked about it. He was asked about it by Jim Wyatt. So a team employee asks the coach about the fumble, and the coach goes, again, and I love Jim, but I don't know if Jim asked a controversial question like that because Jim's employed by the team that's in the league. And so you don't ask that unless it's like, hey, ask me that question. And maybe he asked it anyways. I don't know. I just, again, that's the officiating stuff is sensitive in that league. And so I just know that if I worked for the team, in fact, let me not say what Jim did, but let me say what I would have done. I would have been like, can I ask this question or am I going to get fined myself? But when Brian Callahan tells you, well, the white hat on the field told me that it was a fumble, but then they came back and said it wasn't overturned. And I'm going to let you guys talk about that because I don't want to lose any money. I thought, you wuss, Brian Callahan. Grow a freaking pair. You're making like $6 million. There's a pretty good chance Brian Callahan's going to be fired at the end of the year. And it's not totally his fault, but it is reality. So there's a chance that you'll be making $6 million or $4 million or whatever it is for the next 4 years after this without having to lift a finger. What's the most they're going to find you? 50 grand? Like, I mean, I'm sorry. Like, if you thought that was a bad call, stick up for your guys. Like, I thought it was a bad call. Again, I see the ball coming out of the guy's hand. Like, it was jarred. I know the tuck rule. But if you're Brian Callahan and you get the opportunity to air it out. Like, if you're, again, what are they going to do? They're going to fine you 50 grand. 50 grand's a lot of money to me. 50 grand is not a lot of money to Brian Callahan, who's probably making $4, $5, $6 million. Again, Floyd used to always say when it came to things like this, ask him if he wants the 50 or if he doesn't want the 50, and chances are he'll say, I'd rather have the 50. And I get it. But if you're trying to kind of make your bones as a head coach, and you've got a team who, I'm going to give them credit, they haven't given up on the season. They haven't. Don't you think, like, at that point in time, that's when to go scorched earth? That's when to sit back and say, hey, I mean, it's inexcusable. I saw the replay on the Jumbotron. I mean, they said they changed it in New York, but I don't know what they're thinking. That was a horrendous call. And I would have said something like, it cost us the game, even though it didn't cost them the game. I mean, I would have been Bobby Cox out of the dugout in the umpire's face, even though he did get that check swing call right, because I want my guys in the dugout to know that I got their backs. So 1, I thought it was a terrible call. 2, I'm not sure it mattered that much. And 3, that was an opportunity for Brian Callahan that I thought he could have really, earned his skin on the wall after the game. But he was like, I don't want to lose any money. Okay, that's fine. I see how it is. But the one thing I don't do this, like Calvin Ridley on the overturned fumble, or it's the overturned fumble that cost us the game, the same way that all the other games that we played have happened. No. But it's a bad call. It is a terrible call. And the way the NFL chooses to adjudicate it, I think, is sketchy. 615-737-1025. We will get to your phone. So I wanted to lay that out there. And again, my opening opinion, which was 8 more games to go. And then we get to see if the Titans are going to do something about it. 615-737-1025 here on our program. This week's Nationals Best Deal is Fat Bottom Brewing Company. Enjoy their long-awaited release of their barrel-aged Noel Christmas Ale just in time for the holidays. Get half off a $100 gift card now while supplies last at thegamenational.com/deals while supplies last.
We'll have the Harbaugh brothers coaching against one another in a couple of weeks. Been there, done that at the Super Bowl. Here's Levis, hit from behind, taken down. Sack number 6 for the Chargers. It's the former Titan, Bud Dupree. Second down at 16. Here's Spears, and he will lose yardage on the play. Dupree gets up and celebrates. Loss of 7. Only 82 second half yards for the Titans. Dupree knocks the ball loose. It's Latham, the left tackle, who picks it up. What a series this has been for Bud Dupree.
What a series it was indeed for Bud Dupree. Again, a sack, a 7-yard loss on a screenplay, and another sack. Unbelievable. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Let me just get this out there. So many people have texted into the text line. Somebody just said in the YouTube chat in regards to the fumble, non-fumble from Justin Herbert, and said the ball just didn't bounce their way. And Kaharski actually wrote a column and then said the same things this morning on Robbie and Joe. Kaharski said in a column that he was basically like, where do you go? The owner doesn't take questions from anybody who doesn't take a paycheck from her. The general manager never speaks, and he does one 5-question interview that's so bad we're still talking about it 2 weeks later. I mean, where do you go for hope that this is going to get any better? All the while watching Bud Dupree go out there and light your ass up, and Hassan Haskins score a touchdown. And I don't know if you guys were watching, I think this might have been during one of the earlier games. This might have been during the beginning of your game. I can't remember. But they did a game break where they either went out to L.A. or they went to New York. Or I don't remember what game I was watching. I don't remember what I was. But it was like, let's go to New York for a game break. And here's JB. All right. Thank you, Ian. And it's like, Jeremy McNichols has a touchdown for the Commanders. I'm like, whoa. Jeremy McNichols. He has 4 touchdowns this year. Tajay Spears, who you took in the 3rd round, has 1. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com at 615-737-1025. And all I have to say again is 8 more days. Or 8 more days. 8 more games. Ian, the call screener won't let me see who's up on line 1. So
okay.
Who's up on line 1?
John is up first.
John is going to kick us off here on the program. John, thank you for waiting. Go ahead.
Hey, Jared. Yeah, yesterday the game, I think the result was just about what everyone would have expected. It looks like the players even kind of know the season's kind of wrapped up at this point. But I thought on some off-season stuff, if they do decide to clean house, how attractive is the Titans' job to a candidate that would have like other options out there, like a top candidate? Just get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I appreciate your call. So it won't be as attractive as some of the other jobs that would be available. But you have to remember it's one of 32. So again, if you're looking for a specific candidate, you know, the Chargers, I think, are a good example. Everybody wanted that job. And everybody knew Jim Harbaugh was getting the job. Everybody knew that Jim Harbaugh was leaving college football because with all the scandals at Michigan and the Connor Stallions thing and everything else, they knew the hammer was coming down. Everybody knew that Michigan football was all in on winning a title last year, and credit to them, they did. And so everybody knew Harbaugh was going to the NFL, and everybody knew that he was going to the Chargers. Everybody wanted the Charger job. And the reason everybody wanted it was because of the quarterback, Justin Herbert. Now, you ask me how attractive this job is. I can't give you that answer because I don't know what other jobs are open. I talked on Friday about how I think Cincinnati needs to fire Zach Taylor. I don't think they will, but I think they need to fire Zach Taylor. If Cincinnati fires Zach Taylor, that job becomes the single most attractive job maybe over the last 8 years because they have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. I mean, I really think that if they got rid of Zach Taylor and the Brown family went to Nick Saban and said, we'll give you $8 million a year to come run the Bengals, I think Saban would do it. Even though he's old and even though because again, he's got Joe Burrow at quarterback. I think Mike Vrabel would be a great coach in Cincinnati for Joe Burrow. But I don't know if that job's going to come open. every year there are 7 jobs on average that come open. This year, it seems pretty obvious to me that the Giants job will come open, even though the owner has said that it won't. I don't see how that happens. Dallas will come open, and I don't know how good or bad. It's probably a better job than the Titans. And then, the other ones, the Saints are already open. If you believe in the salary cap, that would be a terrible job, but I do think that that's a fine job. The Titans, it's not the best job, but at the same time, it's one of 32. And as crazy as this sounds, you won't have, when Rand Carthon took this job, Adam Peters, who's the GM now in Washington, turned down the opportunity to interview. And it was because he was told, hey, Mike Vrabel's going to be your coach. He's like, I don't want that. I want to be able to pick the coach. I want to run the team. Well, if you clean house, then whoever you hire gets that option. It will be a more attractive job than it was 2 years ago. Ian, who's next?
Adam in Portland.
Adam in Portland is up next here on our program. Adam, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Man, for the first time in 6 months, I'm 100% behind what you're saying today. Not feeling it too much on that call, though, man. If we're a 2-win team at the end of the season, okay, I've kind of accepted it. But when you get a call overturned like that, you go in there, you make a sandwich, you come back, and you're like, what? They have the ball still? That's when it feels like pro wrestling. Thank God for college football this year, because the NFL has sucked to a major level. And that right there, especially for a Titans fan, it just felt phony. And I'm glad to hear you say it. They get to make that call. Is this going to be a fumble or not? And what's good for the game? And that's exactly why they did it. People can act like it's not scripted to a point. These dudes wouldn't keep saying it unless some of it was. And that right there was probably the most egregious thing I've seen all season. Just kind of makes me sick. I don't care that we suck. I do care that we suck. But as far as that call standing out like that, it ruins it for me, man. Like I said, it felt like pro wrestling.
Yeah, I wouldn't say the NFL sucks, Adam. Thank you for the call. I'd say Thursday night's game was incredibly fun. I would say last night, Sunday Night Football, though I did not make it up for the end of it. I woke up assuming the Texans had won, saw that the Lions had come back, and thought, holy crap.
Me too. I did the same thing. I woke up, Detroit ended up winning that game, huh? Darn, I should have stayed up.
I was stunned. I kept, when I was watching the game, so we kind of had a rooting interest because, as I brought up on Friday, my girlfriend is playing fantasy football. And she had Joe Burrow on her team, so we had a rooting interest Thursday night. Well, we had a rooting interest last night because she was she had pretty much beaten her opponent, but we wanted to make sure. Her opponent has Kyron Williams tonight. And the one guy that I was like, you got to take. Well, there were a couple guys I told her she had to take, but one of them was Kyemi Fairbairn. So when Fairbairn hit from 56 last night, I was like, yes! Just because I felt like I was right. But I was stunned by the Lions coming back. So I'm not going to say the NFL sucks this year. I'm going to say the Titans suck this year. Now to the thing about the overturned call. I do feel like the NFL picks and chooses what to call in those moments. And I go back to the 2022, the Josh Dobbs, the end of the NFL didn't want the Titans to make it to the playoffs that year with Josh Dobbs at quarterback. You can't sell that on TV. They would have had the Chargers at Nissan Stadium. They would have had the Chargers. You saw the broadcast crew that we got yesterday for the Chargers and the Titans. They would have had the Chargers and the Titans with Josh Dobbs at quarterback as opposed to Lawrence versus Herbert, which is what they got. That's not a hard call. And then again, 2 weeks later in the playoffs, Cincinnati's pulling away from Buffalo. They're probably going to win the game anyways. But at the same time, as this is going down, I see the Josh Allen fumble. I'm like, this is the exact same play as Josh Dobbs. And I said right then, I go, if they come back and they overturn this, they will have overturned this simply because it keeps Cincinnati-Buffalo a divisional round playoff game. It keeps it an interesting game. And they did. And again, they'll always deny it, and they'll always say they have their reasons, and but it's like Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant getting a beneficial whistle. It's just reality. And I thought yesterday was an example of that, though I don't think it was like as big as, we want to keep fans interested in this divisional round playoff game. But I think that it was, hey, that's Justin Herbert getting that call. Just like it's LeBron James getting a call. I don't think Malik Willis gets the same call that Justin Herbert got, but that's just me. 615-737-1025 on our program, 615-737-1025. Brian Callahan said something yesterday that I'm not going to say it was completely disingenuous, but, well, it's kind of embarrassing. We'll get to it next. Stillman Company, 1025 The Game.
Common thread you're seeing with Leroy and the penalties these last couple of games?
Yeah, he's got too many. I think our operation, with the silent cadence on the road hasn't been good enough. We work it all the time. The music's on all day long. But we got to do a better job of that execution, because the false starts are killer. They put you in these long down and distances that you're second and 15, which is really hard to overcome. But yeah, it's got to be cleaner. Operations got to be better. And that starts with me, and we got to do a better job coaching it.
That was Brian Callahan talking about Leroy Watson. Their starting right tackle yesterday. I don't know if you guys noticed that Leroy Watson, A, stunk, B, got penalized a bunch, and C, did you see, Ian, the false start that Leroy Watson got? I watched the whole thing in live time, and he absolutely false started. But before the snap, like the offensive line set, and Leroy Watson ends up just like standing up and moving over, almost like a tackle in motion or something. I've never seen that before. Like they're set, and then he gets up and like readjusts himself. I'm like, I've never seen that. And then he flinched anyways, and he's terrible.
It's like they brought in, was it OJ? Yeah, OJ.
He's off.
It's like they bring him in on the 2 minute situations to pass block. They must not like his run blocking.
Well, they brought him in yesterday when they had enough of Watson, and he sucks. Ojukwu. I mean, it's a freaking joke. And when Brian Callahan, is asked about Leroy Watson's penalties, and he's like, well, in practice, we turned the music on. I'm like, that's great. Maybe the problem, though, is that Leroy Watson freaking blows. Like, maybe that's the problem. Maybe the problem is the right tackle problem. I mean, just hear me out on this, Brian. Maybe it's not we can coach him up, we can this, we can. Maybe it's that Nicholas T. Frere, a.k.a.
PT,
Jalen Duncan, Leroy Watson, John Ojukwu. Maybe it's that they all freaking suck. And that maybe that's why right tackle is such a problem. And maybe that's why pass protection is such a problem. Is because every single player you've tried at that position absolutely freaking stinks. Have you ever thought of that? And instead, it's just every week it's some new crap about like, oh, well, we're going to try to coach them up better this week. I've seen them all, coach. You can't coach them up. In fact, the day after you took the job, I told you, you got to go get a right tackle. No. Bill Callahan will fix it. And I got to say this. I've lost faith in Bill Callahan. And I know every single person in that league has nothing but glowing things to say about Bill Callahan. Whether it's Rich Gannon or Bill Polian or Rick Spielman, or every single person is like, oh no, Bill Callahan is the guru. And even I bought it a little bit. Now, I didn't buy it at right tackle because I knew those guys stunk. But I can't imagine, as stupid as I think Chad Brinker and Rand Carthon are, I cannot imagine that they would have that they would not have gone and gotten a right tackle this offseason if Bill Callahan had not signed off on these group of bozos that they have out there at right tackle. Well, we practice with the music, and I just don't understand why he can't do it. He probably can't do it because he stinks. He probably can't do it because physically he's not good enough to do it. It's like we could practice jump shots every day. We could work on my post game every day. Put me out there against Shaquille O'Neal. I can't do it. So I have no faith in this operation. There's no reason to have faith in this operation unless you're just such a Kool-Aid drinker that you're like, let Rand cook, baby. That's it. Like, that's the only thing you got. But it's embarrassing how bad this right tackle play is. And then it's embarrassing when the coach gets up there after the game and the coach is sitting there saying, well, we're trying to practice with the music and, we work on it every time and he just not seeming to get it because he sucks. That's why. You want to know what else is kind of an indictment on Bill Callahan? and Rand Carthon and Chad Brinker and Brian Callahan and everybody, they paid Lloyd Cushenberry $50 million. I think it was 26 guaranteed to come in here and be the starting center. Ian, did you notice the difference yesterday between him and Brunskill?
Not really.
I didn't. I didn't see any difference between him and Brunskill, who Bill Callahan has buried on the bench until they have an injury it's almost like he stole something from him. It was criminal how they've buried Brunskill on the bench. Who's better than these bozos and should have been playing right tackle or should have been playing right guard, and Raiden should have been playing right tackle or whatever. But one of your prized free agent acquisitions is no better than a guy that was already on your team making $3 million. Holy crap. Mike in Gallatin is up next here on our program. Has been waiting patiently. Thank you for calling. What's up, Mike?
Hey, Jared, thanks. So, not trying to give any credit to the offensive line because you can't, but Will Levis, his pocket presence is non-existent. I don't know if he can gain that skill with the line that we have. But is there any hope for him to get better at that? Or has this team, has Will Levis sunk the ship too?
Okay, so I got thoughts on Will Levis. Good call, Mike. I got thoughts on Will Levis because I have noticed that it's almost like Titan fans don't seem to watch any other game that's been played or have any, I've never seen anything like this. So I've been all over Levis this year, and I think Levis stinks. And I do not think that Levis will be here, for the long haul. And I think if there was any hope of Levis being any good, that's probably gone out the window. But I've got to address this fan angst with Will Levis, or this belief that the Titans' problems are because of Will Levis. And we'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3, the game streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. So I've got some Will Levis thoughts because I'm not a Will Levis guy. I will tell you right now, between the fact that he hasn't gotten any better and the fact that a lot of it feels like it's for show with Levis, and the mayonnaise commercials, I think, are so embarrassing when you play this poorly.
Hilarious.
It's embarrassing. I mean, it is truly embarrassing. I mean, this is why I didn't like the mayonnaise perfume thing, was because I was like, hey, if you're not good, people are going to make fun of you for this, and it's going to be hard to earn back that credibility. So I'm not a Levis guy by any stretch of the imagination, though I did like him coming out of college. And I do think he's regressed from year 1 to year 2, and I wouldn't necessarily put that on him. But some Titans have decided to place their anger towards Will Levis yesterday on him instead of that above Will Levis, and I just don't get that. I watched the whole game yesterday, as did many of you. I thought Levis was fine. They have a great drive scripted for the first one. He throws a nice pass to Calvin Ridley. Now, it was a little underthrown, and Ridley had to slow up a little bit, which tells me that for some reason they still can't get exactly right on the same page. But regardless, it was a touchdown. I thought Levis did some dumb things, the way Levis does. There was one play in particular where he rolled out to the right, and he was being chased by the Charger player. And I'm like, throw the ball into the stands. And instead, he thought he could take him on, and he lost 2 yards. And I guess that was the play where Josh Wiley was running free down the field. And I guess Levis just didn't see him. That's not very good. But again, for the most part, I thought Levis was fine. He didn't turn the ball over. No boneheaded, are you kidding me? What were you thinking? Oh, my God, go back to your room and think about what you did plays. And did you know his quarterback rating was a 127.4? Jared Goff might win the MVP. And last night, his quarterback rating was 59.7. But Jared, Will Levis holds on to the ball too long. He's processing too slow. And he's a second-year quarterback. Did we forget that all of a sudden? He's a second-year quarterback who's come under fire for turning the ball over, and he doesn't have a right tackle. Did we all of a sudden forget that? Like, did we think now he's Peyton Manning at the line of scrimmage who's calling out what every single player on defense is going to do before the snap? Is that what your expectation for Will Levis is? I mean, my God. They don't have a right tackle. Say it again. They don't have a right tackle. How can you be mad at the quarterback? And just because that reality of what they don't have on the offensive line hasn't changed this season doesn't mean that it's not impossible to play quarterback in this league when your line doesn't block. I mean, what are we talking about here? Well, if you go back, some of the 7 sacks were on him. Well, no, duh. I mean, he could have done what Phillip Rivers used to do when he was in his 12th year in the league, and he could have chucked the ball down at the running back's feet on every single play the second somebody was breathing on him. But he's a second-year quarterback. That's what second-year quarterbacks do. They don't have a feel for the game. No, duh. They're second-year quarterbacks. And the only way you get over that is by one of 3 things. Number 1, they're superhuman. They're Manning. They're Burrow. They're that player that can go to a terrible organization with a terrible team, and by year 2, because they're so smart and they're so good and they're so talented, they elevate everybody else. But I'm here to tell you right now, Will Levis is not Joe Burrow. Will Levis is not Peyton Manning, and we knew that going into the year. So did they, by the way, when they drafted a guard over Will Levis. So you know he's not Manning. You know he's not Burrow. The hope is that, hey, he can develop into somebody who can be a pretty good quarterback. But to sit there and act like you expect him to be Peyton Manning, they can go to the lousy-ass Colts and all of a sudden take it over in year 2 and go 13-3 is ridiculous. And the second thing you can do to mask a young quarterback's inexperience is to put a great team around him. Like Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson was the unanimous league MVP his second year in the NFL. And what did Lamar have at his disposal? He had a smart organization with a veteran team that had won before with Joe Flacco at quarterback. And what they did was they didn't blow it all up, but they had a veteran defense. They had veteran offensive linemen, guys like Ronnie Stanley and Marshall Yanda. And they brought in a veteran Mark Ingram. And they brought in Greg Roman to run a system for Lamar. And they protected Lamar from his deficiencies, which is why they got exposed in the playoffs when Dean Pease was able to draw something up because he knew the Ravens. Titans got a lead because Lamar threw a ball too high, and all of a sudden, now Lamar looked human again. But neither of those things are the case for Will Levis. None of them. They have not put a team around him that is good enough for him to be successful. Rookie left tackle who got beat numerous times yesterday by Bud Dupree. I know we talk about how great J.C. Latham is, and I like J.C. Latham. To me, J.C. Latham is performing at what the 7th overall pick at left tackle should perform. Skoronsky can't pass block. Brunskill was fine. And I think Radens is fine, but he's got bozos next to him, so it makes him look bad when Radens and the right tackle choose not to block Poona Ford, and Poona Ford just runs right to Levis. And on every play, it's like, what is Levis supposed to do here? Oh, well, Levis should have done this. Yeah, it's easy to say when you've seen the replay 13 times. It's not as easy when he's doing it for the first time. And what do you want out of Levis? Because Levis was averaging 5 yards of completion this season because he spent the entire year checking it down to the backs and the tight ends. And we said, where are the wow plays? Where are the balls down the field? Where's the showing off the arm? So now he's trying to make big plays down the field. Well, if he's doing that, his eyes need to be where? Down the field. This idea that you can take a kid out of college, play him 9 games as a rookie, bring in a new coach who might stink, a new coach, teach him a new offense with new receivers, with no right tackle, and expect him to go out there and to be able to see the defense lined up and say, okay, the safety's going to drop, and when he does, I'm going to slide it right in behind him. This guy's going to come over here. This guy, to think he's going to be able to do that when he doesn't have the experience or the reps under his belt, it's unfair. It's ridiculous. Like, to me, Will Levis doesn't get a pass when he flicks the ball to the Chicago Bears or rolls it on the ground to the Jets. But when you're sitting here saying, well, he's not processing things quickly enough. No, duh. He's a rookie, or I should say second-year quarterback. Like, they don't process things quickly. Guess who didn't process things quickly when they were a second year? Tom Brady. And by the way, that Patriot team that won the Super Bowl, there's a documentary. It's called Man in the Arena. It's the Tom Brady version of the Michael Jordan Last Dance. And in the first episode, where they go over the first Super Bowl that the Patriots won, which was Brady's second year, Drew Bledsoe says on the first day of training camp, he walked into the huddle and he looked at his offensive line and thought, we've got a chance. You going to tell me that that's what's going to happen with Leroy Watson and John Ojukwu? So let me get this straight. Will Levis hit a deep ball down the field to the $50 million receiver that everybody has been waiting for all year. Check. Will Levis did not turn the football over yesterday. Check. Why does Will Levis suck so bad? because Will Levis got sacked 7 times. But Jared, Mason Rudolph didn't get sacked that many times. Right. And Mason Rudolph played the Patriots. This was the bone of contention I had last week with Trevor and Brian Callahan and all these people that wanted to pretend like the Titans had played better week to week, when in reality, the team that they were playing got significantly worse. The Patriots are a junior varsity squad. Jim Harbaugh's Chargers aren't. Bosa and Mack and Ford and Dupree. And by the way, your defense could have won a Super Bowl when Bud Dupree was at his best on it, and you know it. So again, I understand that we all want Will Levis to be perfect. I don't think that Will Levis is ever going to be perfect, and I'm not sure that Will Levis is ever going to be a starting quarterback. But I actually thought yesterday is probably the best Will Levis has played since Brian Callahan's become the coach. And this idea that these fans are like, Will Levis sucks. Maybe, but I don't know how you take that away from yesterday's game. I mean, did Will Levis give up the big kickoff return? Mason Rudolph didn't get sacked this much, Jared. Yeah, and how did Mason Rudolph do against the good teams? Because Mason Rudolph threw a ball right to a defensive lineman in Detroit. I also laugh out loud. We went crazy after the Buffalo game. And do you remember what we went crazy about? We went crazy after the Buffalo game because Leroy Watson started at right tackle against Indianapolis the week before, and they didn't give up a sack. And so then on game day, we learn that Leroy Watson is inactive. They're going to start Jalen Duncan there. He gets hurt, and all of a sudden, Brian Callahan puts PT at right tackle, and PT was a disgrace against the Buffalo Bills. And that was almost the main story from that game, outside of DeAndre Hopkins pouting on the sideline. So, Mason Rudolph only got sacked a couple of times against the Patriots. Yeah, the Patriots. Ian, who's the best pass rusher on the Patriots?
Not sure.
I mean, I'm serious. Do we even who's the best pass rusher on the Patriots? Nobody knows. They don't exactly have Joey Bosa on their team. Detroit. You played that. Well, Mason Rudolph didn't get sacked that much against Detroit. Yeah, it seems to me like Detroit had a really big injury the week before that. I can't remember who it was or what position. Oh, yeah, it was Aiden Hutchinson, who might have been the league's MVP if he hadn't gotten hurt. He was their pass rush. Their best pass rusher right now is a DT named Aleem McNeil. So this idea that, again, the problem is Will Levis. Did you not see? They played 2 good teams while Will Levis was out. Forget about the Patriots. In fact, this is why I thought they would bring him back against the Patriots, because the Patriots were so bad that if they won, everybody would be losing their panties saying, Will Levis, yeah! No. You beat a AAA team. But the 2 good teams that the Titans played with Mason Rudolph at quarterback, Buffalo and Detroit. What happened in each game? Titans got a lead early, was somewhat competitive at halftime, came out for the second half. Special teams was terrible. Defense can't get a stop when it matters, and you get your ass kicked. Is that not what happened against Buffalo and Detroit? What happened yesterday? Titans get a lead. It's a competitive game around halftime. Defense can't get a stop when they need to. Special teams gives up a huge return, and you got your ass kicked. So if the same thing is happening when Will Levis is in at quarterback as is happening when he's not in at quarterback, why all of a sudden is Will Levis the problem? I mean, what are we talking about here? And again, I'm not a Levis guy. And I'm not somebody who thinks that Will Levis is the answer to this team. And I remind everybody when they say, well, this is Levis's fault, that it was Rand Carthon who was the general manager when Levis got drafted. But I also know when it's fair to criticize somebody for something and when it's not. And I don't know how you could watch that right tackle play and sit there and say to yourself, well, Levis should overcome that. Because I don't think there's a second-year quarterback in the NFL whose name isn't Joe Burrow who could. And I'm serious about that. I think if you stuck Jaden Daniels behind this offensive line, Jaden Daniels would be having problems, and put him against the Chargers. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to wait. Like, gets it. And I almost wonder if it's because you don't want to. And there's something about this, about the Levis thing, that I want to get to next, and we will. Stillman and Company, 1025 again.
What did you think about Will?
I thought Will was good at times. I thought, a couple of times it felt like he's trying to find a bigger play in the later parts of the game. And once he started getting the ball out and just trying to play faster, that was good. I thought he did some good things today. There's definitely some things that are encouraging and things to teach off of.
That was Brian Callahan, who I actually think is right when he says, hey, well, Levis played okay yesterday. I thought Levis was fine. But Jared, he holds on to the ball too long. Right. He's a second-year quarterback that is trying his hardest not to turn the ball over. Of course, he's going to hold on to it a little too long. One thing that I do just want to get out there when it comes to Levis, because I liked Levis when he was coming out of the draft. Ian, did you see the Kevin O'Connell and Anthony Richardson mic'd up moment that was going around the internet last week?
No, but I heard O'Connell address it. I guess he was asked about it, but I didn't actually see what he said, though.
So when the Colts played the Vikings on Sunday Night Football last week, after the game was over, one of them was mic'd up. I'm guessing it was O'Connell. And on Inside the NFL, they showed the interaction where after the game was over, O'Connell went up to Anthony Richardson and said, hey, man, I want you to promise me something. I want you to remember that you're a bad dude. Like, you're a bad dude. And that, I've always thought you're going to be great, and they still think you're going to be great. So hang in there and remember that you're going to be great. And I'm like, it's funny because everyone's like, Jared liked Anthony Richardson. I'm like, I did. And the Colts have ruined him. And here's O'Connell, a QB guru. And O'Connell, he's like, yeah, hey, if I had Anthony Richardson and I was coaching Anthony Richardson, because game recognizes game. And again, this goes back to organizations screwing these quarterbacks up. And I have a hard time with getting a read on Will Levis. I mean, if I looked at yesterday's game and I were to say, Jared, what do you think of Levis? I would say, see some good things, see some bad decisions that were made, like how Levis is coming off of an injury, and on a couple of those scrambles, he decided he was going to take them on.
Took a couple of hits, didn't he?
Yeah, like right at the beginning of the game, too.
Spun off one. Yeah.
Like, buddy, chill out. Jared Goff yesterday ran for a first down, and he had Aziz chasing him. And as is Aziz day late, dollar short, Al-Shaair is accustomed to, Aziz was chasing after Goff, and Goff, he was sprinting to that sideline. Like, it took every, Thomas the train engine trying to get there because he didn't want to get hit. Levis, of course, I'll take him on. And it's like, okay. But I don't understand how you get a read off Will Levis with the people above him screwing the team up as bad as they have. And again, I'm not going to tell you that Will Levis is going to be anything more than a backup, because I don't think he's going to be right now anything more than a backup. But how can you look at a young quarterback and get a fair evaluation of what he is or what he isn't when he doesn't have a tight end? He doesn't have a right tackle. How can you blame him when Daniel Brunskill comes off the bench? I guess he must have been in jail, because he gets paroled and comes out and plays center better than the $50 million center you signed this offseason. They never let him play right tackle with all those bum right tackles you had out there. And I'm not making an argument for Levis to be the quarterback next year or anything like that. But there is a reason, and we don't talk about this enough, that Levis was significantly better last year than he was this year. And it's probably because the coaching staff and the front office have their head so far up their ass that they don't know what they're doing. So how do you really get a fair assessment? And how do you think you're getting a fair assessment of Will Levis when you watched Malik Willis come in here and light you up like Michael Vick meets Randall Cunningham? I don't get it. Somebody said, Jared, you have flip-flopped on Levis. You said he was a bum and he stinks, and now you're saying he's a second-year quarterback. Somebody else said, you've been quarterback, give me a break, says one of the texters. Right. With doing the stupid stuff that anybody who's ever played football should know better than. Flicking the ball to the Chicago Bears, rolling the ball to the New York Giants, not being able to get a play call in, throwing the ball right into the fat of a defensive lineman. He didn't do that yesterday. Like, there's a difference between, man, you really gave the game away against the Chicago Bears, and you weren't good enough to outduel Justin Herbert when you've got no special teams and no right tackle. There is a significant difference there. Like, I'm sorry, you people just, it's like if the quarterback wins, he's great. If the quarterback loses, he sucks, and that's all that matters. And it's not how he won or how he lost or how he anything. I had somebody in the text line that is blowing me up saying, Jared, I hate how you talk about Joe Burrow like he's Peyton Manning or Tom Brady. He hasn't won anything. He stinks compared to those guys. I had to message the guy back on the text line, and I said, did you watch the game Thursday night? I think Joe Burrow's pretty good. Joe Burrow is a star. So if there are people out there that think that Joe Burrow stinks, then there's always going to be people that just think crazy things, and there's no way to change their mind. But with Levis, like, I was actually encouraged yesterday. What's he supposed to do? He doesn't have a starting tight end. He doesn't have a right tackle. They traded away his best receiver, the one he's got chemistry with. Although, I will say this, 3 targets, 3 catches for NWI. I'm convinced that if NWI played with a good quarterback, NWI would be lighting it up. And again, I don't think he'd be like Jamar Chase, but I think he'd be like Julian Edelman, just wearing him out. If a guy like Manning had NWI and he could trust him the way that we can trust it, oh my God. But I don't understand this whole idea that Will Levis is all of a sudden, it's like, Jared, you said he was terrible, and now you're saying he's not terrible. Yes. When his quarterback rating was 23 and he was turning the ball over like candy, or he was throwing for 95 yards in an entire game, yeah, I was saying he was terrible. Yesterday, Levis was fine. You scored 17 points. Like, that's what you score every game. That's what you score with Mason Rudolph. I don't see what the difference is. And again, this Charger team, they're better than the Colts. They're better than the Patriots. They're better than the Bears. They're better than the Jets. They're probably on par with Green Bay. Like, that was a good team that you played yesterday, and I thought Levis held his own. So I just think what it is there's just people out there that if the quarterback loses the game, they're going to say he sucks no matter what. I call this the Jared Goff theory. I don't know if you guys remember this, but a couple of years ago when we were having all these debates about Ryan Tannehill, I said that I thought that Jared Goff was better than Ryan Tannehill. And I think they're very similar quarterbacks, but if I had to rank them, I had Goff ahead of Tannehill, which now everyone's like, well, duh. But this was a different time. This was 2 years ago. And Robbie Stanley just went crazy. Robbie Stanley and Buck were just blowing my phone up saying that Jared Goff stinks. And I say, here's the deal. When Jared Goff was with the Rams, with Sean McVay and Todd Gurley was healthy and they were winning, everybody thought Jared Goff was the second coming. But then all of a sudden, when the Rams were asking Goff to do more and he couldn't, all of a sudden he sucked. Then he goes to Detroit with no football team there, and it's, oh, Jared Goff's a bum. Now they build up a football team around Jared Goff. Now he's good. Jared Goff hasn't changed. The Jared Goff last night is the same Jared Goff who couldn't seal the deal in the NFC title game, is the same Jared Goff who scored 3 points in the Super Bowl, is the same Jared Goff that is a front runner for MVP. It's the same guy. The difference is what's around him. Ben Johnson's coaching him. He's got a true number one in Amon-Ra St. Brown. They drafted Jamison Williams in the first round. They got Sam Laporta, who's a great tight end. They got the best right tackle in the NFL. Jared Goff has the exact opposite of everything Will Levis has. And yet, I think, again, it's just when Goff wins with the Rams, he's great. When he loses with the Lions, he sucks. When he wins with the Lions, he's great. And that's not really how quarterback play works. It's just not how it is, if we're being fair. Now, if Levis goes out there next week and rolls the ball on the ground, then we'll have some problems. 615-737-1025 to your phones next on a Titans Monday. It's Stillman and Company on 1025 The Game.
the clock in the head of the quarterback generally is 2.5, 3 seconds, ball's got to be gone, or you've got to escape the pocket. For the most part, it seems like, it's taken 3 to 4 seconds a lot of times yesterday.
Yeah.
Is that something that Will can improve, that can be fixed, or is that something that the line is going to have to just protect longer because he's a guy that needs more time to get the ball down the field?
I think it's certainly fixable. I think there's a couple of them for sure that you point out that, there's one sack in particular is, it's a third and 14 or 15. And we run a pretty standard sail concept, and the underneath throw is available. And the deeper throw is not. And it's just at that point in the game, and at 3rd and 14 or 15, take the completion. And what could happen there is, 1, you break a tackle and you get a first down. 2, we get a good solid gain, and now we're in 4th and 3 or 4th and 2, and we can go for it in that spot, which we would like to do, particularly when the game score was what it was. And then the third one is that you don't take a hit, and it's one less hit on your body and one less hit for the line to absorb. And that was one that definitely should have just get the ball out of your hand. It's 3rd and 15. It's difficult as hell to convert those and take those yards and see what happens, as opposed to trying to force a ball down the field or hold on to it to wait and see. You're just usually not going to go very well at the end of the day. So yeah, those are things that you can point out, and we will. Things where you can get better and play more efficiently and help ourselves get the ball out of our hands. So it's hopefully one less sack on the ledger for the game.
There you go. That was Brian Callahan. And again, the question was, what can Levis do to get the ball out faster? And because I hear Levis needs to get the ball out faster. And I don't disagree with that, because he did get sacked 7 times, and probably 3 of those were his fault. Some of them, there was one where I can't remember who it was, but they just it was like a basketball play, and just went right around a Jukwu and hit the quarterback. There was nothing he could have done there. Poona Ford on one play just ran in between. I think it was Watson and Radens, just ran right in between them and was not touched and hit the quarterback. You can't blame him for that. But I do agree on some of those balls got to come out faster. So you eliminate 3 sacks from the game. What does that do? What does that do for you? And again, Brian Callahan's talking about, number one, you can get it down to a running back, and maybe he breaks a tackle and runs for a first down on 3rd and 12. Fat chance, but okay. Number 2, you don't take the hit. Okay. We know that Levis is never going to stop taking the hits. So that's just is what it is. And number 3, it's one last sack on the ledger. So if Levis had been sacked 3 times instead of 7, but if on those plays, let's say the one where he technically got sacked when he was trying to run and he tried to take the guy on and he lost a yard early in the game, if he had done what I wanted him to do when watching the game in live time, and I just said, throw the ball away, what does that do for you? And the answer is nothing. So getting it out faster doesn't mean that he's going to get a first down, which is what you want. Brian Callahan's thinking about, hey, I don't want you to take the hit, so check it down to Tajay Spears, and he'll get 9 yards, and we'll send out the punter. But that's not what you want. You don't want to punt. You want to get first downs. You want to score touchdowns. And when you don't, you'll get mad. So again, he checks it down. They gain 2 yards. It's 4th down, and now they come out to punt. Is it any different than a sack? At this point, are you really worried about field position? It's not like your special teams is worth a crap anyways. So this idea of he's got to get the ball out faster, that's just you getting frustrated by the sack numbers. But you'd be equally as frustrated by going 3 and out and punting as you are by the sacks. You don't care about whether or not Levis takes a hit. You do not care. And the whole point of that is because, hate to say it, but you only care about, whether or not he's scoring touchdowns, and anything short of that, you'd say he sucks. There's no nuance in that. 615-737-1025. One texter says, should Callahan relinquish the play calling? I think he may be taking on too much. I don't think the play calling is the problem. I think the right tackle is the problem. I think the lack of a tight end is the problem. I think the special teams, which he is not in charge of, is a problem. I think the fact that the Titans defense can't get any stops when it really matters is a problem. I think that L'Jarius Sneed and Chidobe Awuzie don't play anymore is a problem. I don't think the play calling is the problem. Chad is up next here on our program. Thank you for calling and waiting. What's up, Chad?
Hey, Jared. You hear me?
Yep, go.
Okay. So I'm glad that you brought up the organizational and quarterback fit and how you don't know if you can get a good read on Will Levis, because I'm not a Titans fan. I feel like I can look at it from the outside in, and I've felt that not just with Will Levis, but Mariota, Locker, all the way back to Vince Young, I feel the Titans really don't do any of their quarterbacks any kind of service as far as helping them to be better. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think it's hard for me because Kaharski does this all the time, and I think it's so stupid. Thank you for your call. I think it's so stupid when Kaharski's like, it's in their DNA that they can't develop a quarterback. I'm like, did Akili Smith failing in Cincinnati have anything to do with Joe Burrow? Washington blew it on Dwayne Haskins and Sam Howell and Patrick Ramsey, and all of a sudden they drafted Jaden Daniels. And it doesn't seem to me that whatever the problem with Patrick Ramsey when Steve Spurrier was the coach, when they were still called the Redskins, it doesn't seem to me that that has been an impediment for Jaden Daniels, the RG3 curse. So I don't really buy that. But I will say this. I do think that there are good coaches, and I think there are bad coaches. And I think what we've seen with the Titans is, I mean, Russell Wilson is 3-0 as the Steelers starting quarterback. The Steelers are going to make the playoffs, and they're actually going to compete in them this year. How much of that is because of Arthur? Because Arthur can coach. I do think there's something to that. You know, I hear a lot of people every time they get mad at Callahan, they say, we fired Mike Vrabel for this. Well, you also fired Tim Kelly and Todd Downing and Jason Hodling and Keith Carter and all these assistant coaches that weren't worth a crap. And it's not like Vrabel was perfect. But when Vrabel had Arthur, when Vrabel had Dean Pease, they had a legit operation. And I do think that that is some of the problem, is that the evaluating of how the Titans go about doing these things might be the problem. Again, I always tell you, whenever we used to ask Floyd, what happened with Vince Young? Because he knows as well as anybody that Vince Young is technically a bust on, or he knew was a bust on his resume. I used to always say, what happened to Vince Young? And he would say, all I know is when I was GM, he was rookie of the year and went to the Pro Bowl. Translation, they screwed him up. Don't blame me. Blame Norm Chow. Blame the late Mike Heimerdinger. Blame Jeff Fisher. Blame the pads in the stands. Don't blame me. Because when I was here, he was rookie of the year and going to the Pro Bowl. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game.
didn't complement each other well enough. We had a chance to we go down an opening kickoff, go down there in scoring position, don't convert a third down. You have to score touchdowns in the red zone in a game like this where we knew the possessions would be limited. We kick a field goal. We got points on the board, kick the ball back off. We end up give up a big return in the plus territory. They punch the ball in and score 7. We get and then we had to punt the ball. So we punt it, and we pin them down on the 5-yard line. Great coverage, great rush, all the things that we want. They're on the 5-yard line, and they go 95 yards for a touchdown. And ultimately, that was the game. That was the swing, the kickoff to the touchdown, to the punt, to the 95-yard drive. We didn't bow up at any point, didn't play well enough in any phase to win the game, and didn't complement each other well. So that's how you lose games on the road to good physical football teams.
Thank you, Brian Callahan, for the Mike Keith impersonation, giving me the play-by-play of what happened yesterday. I know what happened. I need to know the why. And there's another why that I need to know when it comes to Brian Callahan, which is how he can script up some of these just beautiful drives and then it all go right in the toilet right afterwards. Somebody's got to explain that to me. In the meantime, let's take some more calls. Vincent is up next on Brian Callahan. Vincent, thank you for calling and waiting. Go ahead.
Yeah, Jared, I usually absorb more of your show before I call, but I had to get in on this one. But to your caller's last point of developing talent, yes, the Titans are terrible at developing talent. Not only are they terrible at developing talent, they sign players to stand on the sidelines every year and get their therapy. It's like a rehab assignment in the NFL is what the Titans are. Well, just go down there and just hang out with them this season, get your treatment, get your rehab. Then we'll sign you with a good team and you can ball out. And that's what happens. We see it repeatedly. But anyway, the reason I called was on the coach. The jury was out on him. I was thinking he might, be a decent coach. But, man, like yesterday, missing the opportunity to stand up for your team. Man, get a backbone, dude. Get a backbone.
I can't disagree with that.
What's that? I'm sorry.
Vincent, thank you for your call. I can't disagree with that. I mean, Brian Callahan had the opportunity to be able to rip the officiating after the game for the fumble call, which, again, I don't think it cost him the game. And if Brian Callahan had gone just scorched earth in the press conference yesterday, and there's a limit you can't cross, but there is hey, I'll take the fine. Sean Payton did it when officiating cost him an NFC championship. And there's just a certain time and a place for you to stand up for your guys, accept the $50,000, and view that as an investment in your future and your team. In fact, sometimes when you go out there and criticize something like that, the organization decides to pay it themselves. Not all the time, but sometimes. And he didn't do it. He got up there and was like, well, they told me it was a touchdown, and then they said it was overturned, but I don't want to lose any money, so I won't. It's like, boy, way to stand up for your guys, coach. And I would have criticized him if he had said that they had lost the game because of the officiating, because I don't think that is why they lost. But I think that's what he should have done. Let's go to Caden, who's up next here on our program. Has been waiting. Thank you for calling. What's up, Caden?
Hey, what's up, Jared? You doing good today?
Yep, thank you. Go.
All right. I wanted to talk about off-season decisions. I was thinking back whenever the off-season was happening, and the people were talking about we need to invest in defense, but I think the Titans should have tried everything possible to invest on that offense. Even if the defense takes a hit, this whole problem of, well, what do we really know about Will Levis? Because we invested everything into this guy, then we would have a definitive answer. But no, they didn't do that. We don't have an offensive line. They invested into a receiver that isn't doing too well. And I just think they could have done a better job of putting more talent around.
I agree. And here's what I will tell you. I think the Chargers, the team you played, they're an example of, hey, but Jared, you can't fix everything in one offseason. Here's what the Chargers added in free agency. This is before they traded for Elijah Molden. They added a center, Bradley Bozeman. They paid him $1.125 million. They added a defensive tackle, Poona Ford, had a sack yesterday, $1.79 million. They signed 2 linebackers, including Denzel Perriman, $2.3 million. They signed 2 running backs, Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. Dobbins, $1.6 million. They signed a safety, and they traded for Molden. Aloy Gilman for $10 million, $5 million annual value. They signed 2 tight ends, Hayden Hurst and Will Dissly. Did you guys notice Will Dissly was out there? They signed Christian Fulton to play corner, and he's played in 7 games for them. So everybody tells me, well, you couldn't fix everything in one offseason.
Titans
So
made
you
a lot
couldn't
of
sign
signings on offense.
Right, but they didn't sign a tight end and they didn't sign a right tackle. And
But they
what
got a
happened
center, a running back,
the Titans,
2 wide receivers.
and the center is average.
So is theirs.
He's average. Right.
And the money doesn't matter.
They're paying $1 million
matter.
for their guy.
Money doesn't
Why
matter.
does the money not matter?
Why does the money matter to you? They
The
can
money
just
matters
move,
to me because Amy's only going to spend so much of it.
well, they can move the money around. They always can.
No, I'm talking about real money. I'm not talking about the cap. I'm talking about the money that Amy is writing out of her personal checking account to pay for this football team.
Well, let's not pretend like the Titans didn't make a lot of moves on offense this offseason.
The Titans have the 26th highest payroll in the NFL. The money matters. So when you pay a center $26 million and you can get the same out of the $3.5 million center who played yesterday, that's a problem. The problem is the Titans got too caught up with winning free agency and signing names instead of, hey, we need a tight end. Let's do what the Chargers did. Let's sign 2 guys. So when one of those guys gets hurt, and Hayden Hurst has been hurt, the other guy, Will Dissly, will be able to play. Let's sign 2 running backs, Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. So when Gus Edwards spends most of the year on IR, we're okay because we still have J.K. Dobbins. That's what they did.
Pollard's fine. They have Spears.
Pollard's
Spears
fine.
is hurt, and we like Pollard. Best player on offense. No?
Yay, a running back.
Signed.
By the
free
way,
agency.
Your running back is $8 million. Their running back is $1.6 million. And going into yesterday, and neither guy really rushed for much yesterday. Going into yesterday, Pollard 622 yards, Dobbins 620 yards. Dobbins has 6 touchdowns. Your guy has 3.
They brought in Boyd. They brought in plenty of players this offseason for the offense.
Not a right tackle. And the right guard they brought in quit 3 weeks into training camp.
Left tackle, they drafted him 7th. Good. That's a good pick.
And I'm fine with that. Well, good pick. I don't know.
It's a good pick.
We'll look back on it and we'll see what else could have been picked and we'll decide. The defensive tackle has been a disaster.
We would be complaining they wouldn't have a left tackle if they didn't pick Latham.
Well, that is true because they didn't sign anybody. So keep that, make of that what you will. Speaking of off-season additions, they haven't worked out. For whatever reason, whether you want to say it's bad luck or whatever, I'd say that team was poorly constructed. But I want some consistency when it comes to how this team is run. And if Amy Adams Strunk is consistent, there's something that she would do today. And why she won't do this, that's the real question. We'll get to it next. I'm going to company 105 again. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios here on a Titans Monday, another depressing Titans Monday. They're terrible. They got beat in what was the biggest 10-point victory I've ever seen in my life. And I've had this topic in my head for a while, and I was thinking probably around the beginning of December we do this topic, but I think I want to get it out of the way today because it's to a point where it's obvious to everybody who's objective that Ran Carthon and his vision for the Tennessee Titans has been an unmitigated disaster. I think even after yesterday, where you went on the road to the Chargers and Hassan Haskins had a touchdown and Bud Dupree went off and your right tackle position's a mess and your young quarterback's not really getting that much better and your star receiver has a big touchdown and it doesn't matter and your two corners don't play, even though your AI cancer curing model was supposed to be able to determine everything, and Derrick Henry's having the season he's having, and etc. I don't think you can argue this anymore. And I know the distinguished gentleman on the YouTube chat will say, let Rand cook and all of that. That's fine. But as far as actually having faith that Ran Carthon, and throw Chad Brinker in there, I don't care. He hired Brinker. So, I've always believed if you get rid of one of them, get rid of both of them. But I'm not even sure how you can argue that they do have a clue. Again, touchdown Hassan Haskins, Bud Dupree, 2 sacks, and a 7-yard loss in a 3-play series. Danico Autry went crazy last night on Sunday Night Football. Malik Willis is getting the game ball in Green Bay. And again, Derrick Henry is headed for 2,000 yards. Whatever the vision was 2 years ago when they fired John Robinson, I highly doubt it's equaling the same amount of wins as the Carolina Panthers since then. But that's what's happened. In fact, right now, Carolina has 3 wins. You have 2. So let's go back to when the Tennessee Titans decided to fire John Robinson. Because if you listen again to the open of the show, you hear me saying that I know Amy can be a good owner. And that's because between the years of 2015 and 2022, I saw that. I saw the Titans as a well-run operation. Well-ran operation. I told Caroline the day after the A.J. Brown game in Philadelphia, I said, you do realize in some of these less stable organizations, the Jags, Dan Snyder in Washington, the Jets, the Browns, the Raiders, in some of these lesser run organizations, somebody's getting fired after that A.J. Brown game. I figured, a real organization, the Titans, wouldn't react like that. But the next day she hauled off and fired the general manager. And if you had told her that day, well, from that moment on, you're going to lose every game the rest of the year. You're going to hire a new general manager and he's going to go 8-17. She wouldn't believe it. So if she lives to the standards that she pretended she had when she up and fired John Robinson when they were in first place, then I got to say, if we're living by the same standards today that we were living by 2 years ago, then she should fire Ran Carthon now. Ran Carthon and Chad Brinker together, however you want to slice it, since Ran was hired, their record is 8-17. They are 1-6 against the division. In 2022, up to that point, the Titans were 3-0 in the division. They had beaten Indy twice, and they had beaten Houston on the road with Malik Willis at quarterback. They would lose to Jacksonville twice, cost themselves the division, and lose to the Texans at home. But at that point, they were 3-0 in the division. They are 1-6 since Ran Carthon became the general manager. And I don't think we can argue that the division's very good. The quarterback that Ran Carthon drafted is 4-11 as a starter. The defensive tackle that they took this year at 38 doesn't have a hit or a sack in 9 games. And the defensive tackle, Danico Autry, they let walk in free agency, has 2 sacks and 5 quarterback hits in 4 games. The Titans' $230 million free agency bonanza has produced a wide receiver who is 54th in the NFL in receptions, a guard who quit 2 weeks into training camp, 2 corners that don't play, an injured center who wasn't very good, a linebacker who can't cover, and a running back who is solid, but is not as good as the running back that Ran Carthon alienated and let walk in free agency. They have no right tackle, no starting tight end, and a rookie coach who is in over his head. All of the talk about the vibes in the building and how great everything is in Titan land and the draft board that was the most accurate draft board they've ever been a part of, and the coaching board that Brian Callahan put together that yielded Colt Anderson has been all talk and no results. Meanwhile, John Robinson won 61% of his games. He was 7-5 on the season when he got fired. Had been to the playoffs 4 times in 6 years. Had won 2 division titles. Had drafted 5 All-Pros, including one guy who is going to the Hall of Fame. And that wasn't good enough. But what we're watching now is, this is what Amy Adams Strunk said when she got coerced to talking to Teresa Walker for probably 10 minutes in Amy's office at the facility 3 days after she hauled off and fired John Robinson without a real explanation. Here is what Amy said after firing John Robinson in the middle of the season.
Honestly, I had made the decision. It was time to move forward. There was no reason to go 6, 7, 8 weeks, however long we remain in the season. It was not fair to John. It was not fair to the team. It just seemed the right thing. It gives us plenty of opportunity now to identify future candidates that we're going to interview, to get to know watch the internal candidates. It's, I'm just not that person that's going to sit on a decision like that.
Okay. So if that was the standard she had then, when 7-5 and first place and making the playoffs and drafting all pros, and if that standard was not good enough and she wasn't going to sit on it no matter what, so she had made up her mind and it wasn't good enough, so she fired him anyways. If she was telling the truth, and I'm willing to guess that she probably wasn't, but if she was telling the truth that she put her foot down and the results weren't good enough and it wasn't fair to John, biggest load of bull crap and all of that, then she needs to do the same with Ran Carthon. But I'm willing to guess that she won't. I'm willing to guess that she's not going to fire Ran Carthon before the end of the season. And that's fine in a vacuum. But it's not fine when you compare it to what happened 2 years ago. Because if she won't fire Ran Carthon during the season, but she'll fire John Robinson when they're 7-5 in first place, I think we need an answer to why. Why won't she do it? Why won't she do it? She said what was happening with this team was not good enough anymore, and they had high expectations and bigger aspirations, and I'm not going to sit on something once I make the decision. I'm just going to do it. Well, how can you have not made the decision on Ran Carthon and his crew when it's obvious they don't know what they're doing? I mean, at least with John, there was an argument on both sides of the table. And I understand both sides of the argument. Well, he traded away A.J. Brown. He whiffed on Isaiah Wilson. He whiffed on Caleb Farley. He made the disastrous trade for Julio Jones. I get that. But this group doesn't have 3 All-Pros in their first draft the same way John Robinson did. This team isn't in first place right now. They're not 7-5, and they didn't win the division last year either. They've gotten increasingly worse from year 1 to year 2. So, again, I'm trying to figure out the why. Why, if Amy 2 years ago felt comfortable in putting her foot down because it wasn't good enough, would she not be willing to do this now? Because it's obvious that Rand and his crew don't know what they're doing. It's obvious that they can't build a team. Again, they don't have a right tackle for the second year in a row. And then what about the other part of the argument? That by firing John Robinson, it gave them a jump start to identify the external candidates. Wouldn't firing Rand Carthon give you the same ability to get a jump start on finding a general manager? But again, I don't think it's as simple as Amy was upset with the results at that point in time. Now, I don't know what the ulterior motive was. But if she didn't have an ulterior motive and she just didn't think John Robinson was doing a good job, then there is no justification for her not firing Rand Carthon today. Because Rand hasn't even sniffed the standard that wasn't good enough for her 2 years ago. So somebody enlighten me. Or do we have an owner that maybe was a little upset, maybe wanted to show power over the organization, maybe wanted everybody to kiss her feet every time she walked in? And if that's the case, we got another problem on our hands too. But somebody explain this to me, because I don't know. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. If you want to weigh in on that, we will get to your phones. And then when it comes to Rand Carthon and Chad Brinker and the collaboration and the great things that were going to come, and there's one thing that seems to be more apparent by the week, and it certainly happened yesterday. We'll do it next. Stillman & Company, 1025 again.
Do you think she does anything? Honestly, do you really think on January whatever she says Rand? Because you know who looks bad if Rand gets fired? She does.
Sure.
And the last thing she wants is for herself to look bad. She already has enough yes people around her. He's not getting fired.
That was Big Joe this morning on Chase and Big Joe. And that is the one fear I have, is that she will not pull the trigger on the GM and Chad Brinker and all of that bullcrap because it will make her look bad. Amy, I got a message for you, babe. You already look terrible. I mean, you cannot look worse than you look right now when you've got your general manager saying the ball didn't bounce your way after you lose by 30 points. It cannot be worse. And you're trying to sell tickets to a new stadium, and I'm telling you, like, as I said at the start of the show, 8 more games. And if she doesn't blow up the operation after the 8 games, then go root for another team. And I might consider doing so too. And I love the Titans, but I can't put up with much more of this. Just ineptitude. No right tackle. Injured corners after Chad Brinker bragged about his AI injury cancer model. It's just unbelievable. So a lot of people want to weigh in on this. And again, all I'm saying is this. If John Robinson 2 years ago wasn't good enough for her, 4 trips to the playoffs, an AFC title game, a 2,000-yard rusher, a franchise quarterback for a 4th-round pick, if that wasn't good enough for her, how in the hell is this good enough?
Well, he had more time, Robinson.
Yeah, you want to know why he had more time? Because in year 2, they went to the divisional round of the playoffs. Is this team going to the divisional round of the playoffs?
So she had more, more of a runway to see all that kind of stuff.
Again, John Robinson made progress when he took the job. Rand has done nothing but regress.
And he's only been
were
here
a
a year,
7-win team.
So, I get it. I get
they
it.
They were a
hasn't been
7-win
great,
team when he took it over. A 7-win team. They won 6 last year. They ain't winning 6 games this year. So, again, John got more time. Yeah, because John won.
Well, it's good.
Because John drafted all pros in his first draft.
Yeah, I think Robinson did a fine job, but some of his stuff towards the end was starting to slip pretty bad.
I don't have a problem. Robbie Stanley said that if he owned the team, that he would have fired John Robinson at the end of the season. And if she had fired John Robinson at the end of the season, if they had not won another game, like Derek Mason is convinced that they would not have won another game the rest of the year, even if Robinson was the general manager. I disagree. I think they would have won the Jacksonville game that week. I think they probably would have finished the year at 9-8 or 10-7. They would have gone to the playoffs and played the Chargers. I don't know what would have happened. Again, that's what I think. He thinks differently. There's no way to prove who is right or who is wrong. But again, when you sit there and you tell me, well, but John had more time, it's because he won. And so if that standard of winning 61% of the games wasn't good enough, how can the making no progress and getting worse and worse, how can that be acceptable?
Got to give it more than just 1.5 seasons or
Why?
2. Why? I don't know.
Should I have given
proof of concept.
Should she have given Ken Wisenhunt more time?
Would he get 2 seasons?
He got a season and a half. He got 23 games.
Well, coach is a little bit different than GM, but I don't know.
When you spot incompetence, you got to chop it right there. And with Rand, again, unless you want to watch former Titans light the Titans up every week, does Minnesota have any former Titans on their team that are going to go off so that we can start making some wagers? And I don't think they do.
Nothing stands out. I don't think so.
Which is good. They'll get a reprieve for a week of getting embarrassed by somebody that used to be on their team. But again, I'm sorry. This is the NFL. This is the not for long league. And you're going to sit here and tell me that we got to give Rand 8 years to win a football game?
That usually applies to
John
players.
won 7. John won 7 and got fired in the middle of the season through 12 games. Rand has won 8 in a year and a half through, 8 plus 17? What is that, 26?
Well, was it Brinker or Carthon this year?
Again, Rand said in the Jim Wyatt article that he contractually has control of the team. Again, I'm firing both of them, so it doesn't matter because I'm cleaning house, which is what they need to do instead of this half-ass 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Mike Vrabel stays, now Mike Vrabel goes kind of stuff. But it doesn't matter. It's not good enough. And you can't sit there and do what she does and say after you fire John Robinson, that's not good enough. Or after you fire Mike Vrabel, the last 2 years were disappointing. And then make us live through this crap and try to put lipstick on it. You can't do it. One texter into the text line says, there wasn't a justification to fire John Robinson 6 months after giving him an extension, but Amy Adams has proven that she is a prisoner of the moment. And that was proven once John Robinson was fired after the A.J. Brown game. I believe Amy Adams Strunk wants a yes man, and she has that with Rand, which is why I don't think she will fire him. I mean, a yes man is fine when there's no record to hold it against. So it's easy to say, well, you know, I like what I hear from him. But it's a lot harder to like what you hear when you never win. One texter says, why do other people act like other GMs take over good scenarios? Like you don't get hired unless the guy before you did a bad job. So I don't get the excuse of John Robinson holding Rand Carthon back. Again, the team that John Robinson had assembled when he got fired was in first place. And were there problems with that team? Absolutely. You want to know what's crazy too? Nobody talks about this. But I was at the last game that the Titans won of the John Robinson era. I mean, I remember when they beat the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau Field on Thursday Night Football in the snow. I had to walk 2 miles back to the hotel because, well, just leave that be. But I had to walk 2 miles back in the snow. But at least I loved my team. I was happy with where they were. It was a good... That night, Danico Autry got hurt. And again, you guys can make every excuse you want for T'Vondre Sweat. T'Vondre Sweat does not produce like Danico Autry. And I remember when Danico got hurt, and I said, let me tell you something, that's a big loss. And Danico didn't come back, I think, until the last game of the year. And I wonder how much that was a factor as much as anything else. Because look at the Titans, defensive line without Danico. It's not the same. But again, I mean, you're supposed to take the job over and then make the team better. Rand has taken the job over and has made the team worse. One texter says, I think John Robinson lost her trust, and if your boss can't trust you, all is gone no matter what business you're in. Again, how could Rand have your trust after he took $230 million of your money and spent it on injured corners and an injured center who wasn't even that good, and a guard who quit 2 weeks into camp? The only good thing they did this offseason was Tony Pollard. I mean, I guess Latham, but that's what you should get with the 7th pick is Tony Pollard, and he's still not as good as the guy that you let go. It's unbelievable. All right, phones next. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number. 615-737-1025. I guess, Ian, you're joining the Rand Club with Willie and Derek?
In what way?
It sounds like you're back in Rand.
Well, I'm just saying, like,
the ball didn't bounce their way?
Not necessarily that. Do we love all the moves? I mean, probably not, but let's not pretend like this roster is ready to go.
No, but let's not act like
every move has been great,
be better than they are right now.
Well, I mean, you got a new quarterback, you got a young quarterback, a new coach. There's a lot of moving parts than just the players.
You had a new coach and a young quarterback when John Robinson took over. You won 9 games your first year.
Okay.
So again, if
different coach, different quarterback,
if that standard's not good enough, then I can't imagine what this is. 615-737-1025. Let's talk Hiller. Oh, hold on. There is something that, again, just keeps getting right up my craw, which we'll get to next. I'm going to company 125 again. All right, now let me tell you about Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I love them. They are the best. Hiller is giving away cash for the holidays. They are celebrating from now until the end of the year with special deals. Hiller wants to make sure every child experiences the joy of Christmas this year, so they're donating $50 in Toys for Tots with every tankless water heater purchase. And they're giving away a $250 Visa gift card with each unit. Get a $500 Visa gift card when you buy select new HVAC systems, or get a $500 Visa gift card with the purchase of any new whole home generator. More details are online at happyhiller.com. And as always, Happy will be here. The service is free, and these deals are only available until the end of the year. So schedule today, which, by the way, I did. I have Hiller coming to my home tomorrow. That's right. I love Hiller. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, Electrical, proud supporters of the Preds of Falls of Vandy. Hiller, call the Happy Face Truck today.
We'll have the Harbaugh brothers coaching against one another in a couple of weeks. Been there, done that at the Super Bowl. There's Levis, hit from behind, taken down. Sack number 6. For the Chargers, it's the former Titan, Bud Dupree. Second down at 16. Here's Spears. And he will lose yardage on the play. Dupree gets up and celebrates. Loss of 7. Only 82 second half yards for the Titans. Dupree knocks the ball loose. It's Latham, the left tackle, who picks it up. What a series this has been for Bud Dupree.
Bud Dupree just lighting it up for the Titans. Excuse me, against the Titans. Hassan Haskins had a touchdown. So add him
That
to
doesn't
Khalif
count.
Raymond.
That doesn't count. Hassan Haskins touchdown.
First of all, you know Harbaugh. That was a middle finger.
That was just a troll move from Harbaugh right there.
Harbaugh was like, you did my boy dirty, and so I'm going to make you pay for it. But again, it is a middle finger. It is like A.J. Brown spanking the goalpost.
Well, AJ Brown
did.
No, AJ Brown spanking the goalpost is because AJ Brown made a good play.
That play actually got wiped off by a penalty. People forget that. But the AJ spanking the goalpost was erased by a penalty. But Haskins scored a touchdown, and Haskins wasn't good enough to be on your team because I guess you had too many good special teams players, which has shown up this season. But again, add them to Malik, add them to Khalif, add them to everybody who
Haskins does not count on that list. No.
Yes, he does. Does Molden's 8 tackles count?
I mean, 8 tackles. Whoop-de-doo. I sure put Molden's 8 tackles in there. The touchdown does not count. He doesn't.
So one texter says, who would you take with this team right now, Ian? John Robinson or Ran Carthon?
I've already answered that question. Robinson.
Really?
We've already answered this question before.
I mean, I know we've talked about it. I don't remember you saying, but you said
I would take Robinson over Carthon, but let's not pretend, everything has been terrible with Carthon. He's had some.
It has been.
Not everything, no.
Most everything.
Not everything.
What hasn't been?
Okay, we've already gone through this. The Latham pick. Solid. Okay, good pick. The Pollard signing. Is he not the best player on offense?
But he's not as good as the guy you let go.
Okay. It's still a fine move.
You downgraded at running back, and you're saying that's a good thing because there's nothing else good to say.
Well, we don't know for sure if Henry would have come back regardless.
You have the tag.
I'm not going to franchise tag a running back.
You've already tagged Derrick Henry.
Yeah, that's when their window was open to win.
What would you rather do? Pay Derrick Henry, or pay Calvin Ridley?
Do you still have Pollard?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, then who's your? I don't know. Probably Henry.
They probably wouldn't use the 38th pick on a run-stuffing D2 who never hits the quarterback.
Well, you could have Kevin Dodd.
How about your coach, the Mike Vrabel to Brian Callahan? Would you say that was a success?
Not yet. No.
Okay. So again, I mean, it's like Chris Sanders defends Ram, but then when asked, Chris is like, yeah, I think it's Robinson. Let's go to your phones. Let's go to Steve, who's been waiting patiently and is up next here on our program. You guys have been waiting for a long time, so we'll get right to him. Steve, go.
Hey, thanks a lot. And look, I'm going to just put it out there. Man, Rand, Brinker, got to go. Rand needs to just go ahead and make a movie with Cheech and Chong, blowing smoke forever. Hey, for real. They can't identify talent. They act like we too darn dumb to know what. They can't scout players. And it's like, we getting trolled. We getting joked on. We're a laughing stock. And ain't his fault as well. And the thing that got me, early I watched it, but now I'm really on it. He wear that T on his hat, and then he ain't got nothing to do with the Titans. Go ahead and brand your own button and get out of here. I'm serving the eviction notice on his behind today. Him and dude. Because, buddy, I didn't want to go to Wisconsin County. They done took us worse than that. Man, I am ultra hot. They need to kick rocks uphill both ways with no shoes, as far as I'm concerned, with what they putting out here on the field. And if Amy's on that stuff, trying to delay to the new stadium, she needs to kick rocks too, but you can't do nothing about the owner. But Rain
Can't do nothing about the owner.
Man, out of here, dog. You're out.
Steve, good call. And I appreciate it. And by the way, it was funny because, Ian, do you remember when we investigated, kind of like the I-Team on Channel 4 or whatever?
Sure.
We investigated how Ran Carthon seems to always, whenever there's a controversial draft pick, he seems to always say that I got texts from all these other people
I don't know
in the
about
league
every
told
time,
me they were great.
but he said that once or twice.
He said it about Tavondre Sweat this year. He said it about Peter Skoronski last year. And he
Everybody
said it about
loves
Colton Dowell.
Skoronski last year.
He got text from GM saying that was a really good pick. Got a text from a GM saying that Sweat was a really good pick because the GM said that he would have picked him. Got a text from coaches around the league when they picked Colton Dowell saying they would have picked him. So we kind of picked up on either the exact same thing happened 3 times or Rand's lying. So somebody sent me an article yesterday, one of these Jim Wyatt offseason, pep rally pieces. And I laughed so hard because I was reading through it. This guy was sending this to me about Danico Autry because I think that's another screw up on Rand Carthon's part. They should have re-signed Danico Autry to a contract before the start of last year. They didn't. He left in free agency. They wanted to keep him, but he got offered so much money by the Texans. And Danico Autry is good and was good last night. And Tavondre Sweat doesn't impact the game at all. And before you tell me, well, you got a good run grade, you tell me the last time Tavondre Sweat made a play in a Titan game that was against anybody but Aaron Brewer that was an impacting the game play. It doesn't happen. So somebody sent me this Jim Wyatt article from the offseason, as a proof about their Danico Autry point. But I was reading through the whole article, and at the very end, I had to screenshot this and send it to Robbie because I laughed so hard. Quote, and again, this is from March. As Carthon has walked the hallway here at the owners' meetings, he's received a few compliments. It turns out, Jim writes, his phone has been buzzing a lot of late. Quote, people were big fans of Tony Pollard. People were big fans of Cush, Cheeto, and all the other guys we've signed, Carthon said. The biggest compliment you can get is from all of this is when guys from other teams text you and say, you guys signed one of my favorite players. And I have gotten a lot of those texts just on the type of guys that we've signed and the impact they've made. So he said the same thing about free agency. And boy, that $230 million free agent class is really paying dividends with the one running back who's okay and not as good. I mean, he's a good player, but he's not as good as the guy you let go. Ellie is up next here on our program. Ellie, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think the biggest mistake Amy made was they should have fired Crown Downing up to Cincinnati and definitely after Green Bay instead of firing John Robinson. They should have made Downing the scapegoat because he was useless anyway, and the offense could have maybe have Tim Kelly run it then. I think times would have done much better. I think that would have been the best case scenario, and I think if Amy would have loosened the purse strings a little bit with John Robinson the following year, I think we would have been in a better position.
I don't disagree with any of that. And I do wonder, and I appreciate your call. Thank you so much, Ellie. I do wonder last year how much, because they spent nothing in free agency. And I do wonder, was Amy in a cash crunch and that's why they didn't spend anything in free agency? But again, we don't know the answer. Just like, was it really the fact that 7-5 wasn't good enough for her when she fired John when they were in first place? That I have a little bit of an issue. More of your phone. 615-737-1025. Stillman & Company. What are we the game?
didn't complement each other well enough. We had a chance to we go down an opening kickoff, go down there in scoring position, don't convert a third down. You have to score touchdowns in the red zone in a game like this where we knew the possessions would be limited. We kick field goal. We got points on the board, kick the ball back off. We get to give up a big return in the plus territory. They punch the ball in and score 7. We get the ball back. I think we get a first down or 2, but ultimately end up in a 3rd and long. We had another penalty, false start. Operation wasn't good enough today. And then we had to punt the ball. So we punt it, and we pin them down on the 5-yard line. Great coverage, great rush, all the things that we want. They're on the 5-yard line, and they go 95 yards for a touchdown. And ultimately, that was the game. That was the swing, the kickoff to the touchdown, to the punt, to the 95-yard drive. We didn't bow up at any point, didn't play well enough in any phase to win the game, and didn't complement each other well. So that's how you lose games on the road to good physical football teams.
That was Brian Callahan. Texter into the text line says, Ian, stop joining the Rand Club.
I'm just saying, I'm not sure I'm part of the Rand Club, but this whole, hey, you have to blame everything on Carthon seems a bit much.
What is the general manager's job?
General manager's job?
Mm-hmm.
To manage the team.
And manage the team in what way?
I don't know. It depends. In this
What's
situation,
the goal for the team to do on Sundays?
What, dog? I get it. Win. Yeah.
They don't win.
And that's all Carthon's fault.
I mean, you're either coaching it or you're allowing it to happen.
Is he the coach?
Again, my whole point is I don't think that Rand went into this with the idea of I'm going to sign these players to lose. Like, I don't think they're trying to lose. That's like when these guys come out. Nothing drives me crazier than when a coach says, or really what you get is when an analyst who works for a team goes on the radio and says something like, I remember I had Seth Greenberg on my Mad Dog Sports show the day that Kentucky got bounced from the NCAA tournament a couple years ago by Scarbini State. And I was like, what's this mean for Calipari? And I didn't know that Seth Greenberg and Calipari were besties, but apparently they were. And so Seth Greenberg starts lecturing me like, nobody is more upset about this than John Calipari. And I'm like, the difference is that it's John Calipari's job for this to not happen. Like, it's not Randall in Paducah who's sitting there with his 1986 Kentucky Wildcat sweatshirt on, saying, go Cats! It's not his job to make sure that they don't lose to St. Peter's. It is Cal's job to make sure that they don't lose to St. Peter's. So when obviously, when Rand says in the paper, hey, we're just as frustrated as the fans. Right, but it's your job to keep that from happening. And again, they don't win. They don't win. And they don't even come close to winning. And what's the answer here? Do we know what the quarterback's going to be? Do we think the Titans coach is good? Do we think that, how do you get out of this? You going to let them draft another quarterback? The same guy that brought you the quarterback that everybody hates now, who actually didn't play that poorly yesterday, but everybody already hates him, so it's all his fault? Again, for me, I don't see any of this, I don't. But again, everybody deserves time. Everybody deserves time for whatever it's worth. One texter says, into the text line, one texter says, I am a Texas fan, and I like Devondre Sweat, but I knew his ceiling was limited in the pros. However, I did expect somebody to reach for him, but it would be a team that was ready to compete and needed to run stuff and tackle to round out an already strong defense. The Titans were not the team, which shows how mediocre the defense is. That is the number one defense to you, bucko. You know why the Titans defense is number one? I figured this out. They're number one because the special teams are so bad and Will Levis turned the ball over so much early in the season that they just don't give up a lot of yards because the other team starts at the 48-yard line. So number one defense, but again, you back them up to the 5-yard line. That's where a number one defense puts the clamps down. 3 and out, they lose a yard. Now they're punting from the 4, so the punter is backed up all the way at the back of the end zone, and he's got to kick it to you, and you field it on the plus side of the field, and now you've got points. Instead, they go 95 yards. They threw one pass on that drive, by the way, and it was to Ladd McConkey for 30-plus yards. Number one defense, my ass. Like, I just, whatever it means by that. One texter says the Titans were in first place when they fired John Robinson in a terrible AFC South. Now it's not so bad. I beg to differ, texter. The AFC South is horrible. Jacksonville is horrible. Sam Darnold. Now, one of the interceptions Sam Darnold threw yesterday I thought was a bad call. And it got reviewed, and the call stood, but they on TV thought it should have been overturned, just like they thought yesterday the Titans' fumble was a fumble, and then they came back and made up for it once they decided that the referees were the replay booth was going to go a different way. Then they started covering for the replay booth. But nonetheless, Sam Darnold was terrible yesterday, and Jacksonville still couldn't win the game. Jacksonville's awful. Indianapolis, not a prayer against Buffalo. They're awful. Houston, Houston had been stinking it up, and they played their tushies off in the first half, and they still lost. This division stinks. Houston, they're not ready for prime time. Like, Stroud is good, but they're not ready for prime time yet. Let me say this about just one quick thought about the Lions, though, in that game, and I did not stay up to see the Lions win. I was shocked that the Lions won. But that Lions team reminds me so much of those early Titan teams, like really the 2000 team. I always say the 2000 team was the best team. The 99 team went to the Super Bowl, but the 2000 team was the best team. And I think the 2002 team was the second best team, and the Super Bowl team was the third best team. But that team was just so stacked at every position. Every player was good. Every draft pick was good. Guys developed on time. And guys came back from injury and made plays. Backups on the roster became stars. There was something about that. Those early 2000 Titans teams, McNair and George and Bishop and Derek Mason and Javon Curse and Keith Bullock and Eddie Robinson and Josh Evans and John Runyon and Brad Hopkins and Frank Wycheck, and there was something about those teams where they just found a way to win all the time. And that's what this Lions team is. Just my quick little Lions aside. 615-737-1025. So there was something I heard on the TV broadcast yesterday that encapsulates what the problem with the Tennessee Titans really is. We'll get to that next. I'm going to accompany 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios on a Titans Monday. And can I tell you what the most angering part about the Tennessee Titans for me is? Maybe it's this way for you, maybe it's not. I don't know. That's your business. But again, this is for me, from where I sit and the games I watch. And yesterday's Charger game was no different than pretty much any other game against a solid team that they've played this year. I guess it was a little different. You know, the Green Bay game was a butt kicking from the very beginning. And, you know, Buffalo, Detroit, this one was more like kind of competitive in the first half and then a blowout in the second half. But anytime they play a decent team, this is what happens. It's not even a surprise anymore. You cannot tell me you were surprised by what happened yesterday. But the most frustrating part about this Titans season is all the talk. Remember, we called it toxic positivity when everything this offseason in Titanland was great. The collaboration was great. The vibes in the building was great. The draft process was great. The coaching hires were great, like Colt Anderson. Great, great, great. The players said it. The coaches said it. The executives said it. We checked every box, Rand Carthon said, from the number one starter to the furthest backup. They have practice squad guys battling it out for right tackle. It's all talk with the Titans. All talk, no chalk. And it's been that way since Rand Carthon showed up. John Robinson didn't talk very much. And when he did, he probably said some things that weren't true. But it wasn't like John Robinson was telling you how great everything was going to be all the time. We certainly know Mike Vrabel wasn't that way. Those guys weren't perfect, but it was different. Which takes me to something I heard yesterday on the TV broadcast. The Fox crew that we had yesterday calling the game, we don't usually get Jonathan Vilma and Kenny Albert. And Kenny Albert's got cred. You know, he's a good broadcaster. But between Vilma and the practice squad woman they were trying out on the sideline, you got the F team from Fox. Vilma was terrible. Couldn't announce anybody's name. You know, again, everything was just so generic. It was obvious to me listening to the broadcast that he did no prep on the Titans, and he just talked to the coaches probably on Zoom and then went from there. And during the broadcast, while the Titans were getting their teeth kicked in the second half, all of a sudden I heard this aside from the two broadcasters on Fox that made me want to vomit. Play the cut.
Great chatting with, getting to know Denard Wilson a little bit the other day, hearing about some of his coaching influences in Washington. Joe Gibbs was the head coach, and then working under guys like Greg Williams, Todd Bowles, Mike McDonald, John Harbaugh, now getting the opportunity as the coordinator.
Yeah, what I really liked about Wilson was when his time at Baltimore, we asked him about, you know, the scheme, etc., and he was more focused on the culture. He said John Harbaugh had created a culture where it's called the Baltimore way. And he said he wanted to take everything about that, bring it to Tennessee so that his defense, they play the Titan way. That's what he's trying to implement with this defense. And so far, they've done a really good job of responding. First in total yards, first in pass yards, second and third down. Man, this is a good defense. Forget the record. They're prideful, and they're playing the Titan way under Denard Wilson.
Number one in the league, yards allowed per game. Coming into this one, pass is complete. Will Dissly. And we asked him, what exactly is the Titan way? He said, tough, intelligent, play with some nastiness.
And you know what? They don't beat themselves, right? This is what you've seen. It took Greg Roman calling some really tricky plays, a design run for Justin Herbert, a flea flicker for Justin Herbert to get over the top of this defense, right? Everything else has been tough. They've had to earn it, and that's a credit to him and their defense.
Second down and 6. Herbert, pump fake, throws, complete.
Nice tackle.
Dobbins, and you talk about the Titan way. Excellent tackle made by Brownlee.
Yeah, let's listen to this one, Kenny. That is the Titans way. Nice tackle by Jarvis Brownlee.
The Titans way. What the hell is the Titans way? What is that? So they talked to Denard Wilson, and Denard Wilson said, you know, John Harbaugh had the Ravens way, and I want to bring the Titan way here. Ian, help me out here for a second. What was John Harbaugh's title with the Ravens? What is his title over there?
John Harbaugh with the Ravens right now? He's the head coach, yeah.
Oh, he's the head coach.
Uh-huh.
What's Denard Wilson's title?
He's the defensive coordinator.
Oh, okay. So the defensive coordinator says, we're going to bring over the Titan way.
On defense, right? Was it talking about defense?
Well, I would hope he wouldn't say that this is what we're trying to bring over on special teams. But again, we're going to bring in the Titan way, baby. Number one, the Titans don't have an identity. That identity that they had died when Mike Vrabel left. Those Titan teams had an identity. They were tough. They were physical. They'd play hurt. They'd play with guys you never heard of. They didn't care. They weren't going to be Mahomes. They weren't going to be Allen. But they were going to squeeze every drop of juice from the orange. And even when the team wasn't that good, I still kind of felt like that's how Vrabel teams played. But Vrabel was the head coach. And so, number one, they don't have an identity. Number two, the defensive coordinator does not decide what the Titan way is. That starts with the head coach and the general manager and even really the owner, not the defensive coordinator. Are we going to let like the quality control coaches all of a sudden say, this is going to be our attitude now? And number three, if the Titans have a way, the Titan way, if they have a way, I can promise you it's not something you want to emulate. It's the butt of a joke. In fact, as the two Fox broadcasters were pumping the freaking sunshine into the room about ha, the Titan way, this is the next play that followed.
4th down and 8. Chargers must get to the 8-yard line for a first. Herbert with time. Now he throws. End zone. Touchdown. Quentin Johnston.
This is great patience by Justin Herbert. And just take a look at the route. It's all the way up across the other side of the defense. And that takes time. So if we're going to credit anybody to start, it's the offensive line. And then, of course, Quentin Johnson getting to the other side of the field. He had all the safeties biting on the other receivers, left alone with Kenneth Murray. There's no way that he's going to guard that. It's a nice touchdown for the Chargers.
The Titan way, baby. All that talk. John Harbaugh had the Raven way, and we're going to bring in the Titan way. And I'll tell you, the Titans, they are so good. This defense is nasty, and they're tough, and they're playing hard, and Denard Wilson is the man, and this defense is so good, and you watch him and look at that tackle, and that's the Titan way. 3rd down and 8. Touchdown, Chargers. Game over. You lose. That's the Titan way. Sunshine, sunshine, sunshine. We play a football game on Sunday and you get your ass kicked. That is the Titan way. Fill up your own head with bull crap that you created, make it up, sell it to your fans, and all of a sudden on Sunday leave everybody going home disappointed. The Titan way. Like, to me, I have an issue with Denard Wilson thinking he can say that to the broadcasters. Like, brother, you are the defensive coordinator. You ain't the head coach. You ain't the GM. This is not your team. Sorry, you're the coordinator. And he's going to sit there with the Fox guys and talk about the Titan way? Give me a break. Unbelievable. It reminds me years ago when the Titans, I think this was Vrabel's first year, and they were going to Indianapolis. And this was a game that Dean Pease ended up going to the hospital in during the middle of it. Mariota got hurt. They were terrible, got smoked by Indy. And I remember saying, if they can go in there and they can play Titan ball, they're going to win. And Floyd laughed, and he was like, I don't even know what does that mean, Titan ball? I was like, go in there, run the ball, dictate the terms of the game, He goes, oh, so what everybody tries to do every game. Titan ball. It's like the Titan way. And the Fox broadcasters just so willfully pump that sunshine in there. Like at no point did these Fox broadcasters say, that sounds really good. This idea of a Titan way sounds really, really good. How come you couldn't get any stops against Indianapolis when you played them at home 3 weeks ago? How come Alec Pierce got wide open against the number one corner of the team and Michael Pittman caught the touchdown? But they don't ask that. They just regurgitate whatever they say. And again, this has been the Titan way. Overpromise and underdeliver every single Sunday. This organization is such a joke. I cannot believe that the defensive coordinator would have the balls to be able to tell the Fox broadcasters, I'm bringing over the Titan way. Dude, you are the defensive coordinator on one of the worst teams in the league. You're going to talk about the Titan way. It's just such a joke. And I'm sure there are people that are like, Jared's making too big of a deal of this. And to me, it's really the crux of my problem with the organization. They just talk. And what do we always say? Joe Morgan, Hall of Fame broadcaster and Hall of Fame second baseman. Joe Morgan said in the World Series in 1995, he said, you can talk the talk if you can walk the walk. And I think it's a perfect example of what this Titan season has been. Talk the talk. 3rd down and 8. Touchdown Chargers. What a joke. 615-737-1025. Stillman & Company, 1025 The Game.
Yeah, Coach, we're talking to Jim Harbaugh here in a little bit. What do you think about what he's doing over there in LA? It feels as though, to Pat's point, they've kind of unlocked Herbert. Everything that we thought the Chargers were going to be every single year this year, it feels like they've done. What do you think about the culture he's kind of established? And do you think that he'll keep this going for, years down the road?
I think that's what Jim does, is establish culture. That's exactly what he does. He's tried to build a more balanced team, more emphasis on the running game, more emphasis on defense, and taking some of the pressure off Herbert so he doesn't have to go back there 45 times a game and throw for 350 yards to win. So, and Herbert's, embraced that. He's done a better job of just doing what the team needs him to do. He doesn't have to, go back there and lead the league in passing and, interceptions and everything else. Just go back there and, take advantage of the opportunities that he has and let the runners run, let the defense play defense and, those kind of things. And Jim's established a hard-nosed, tough culture, which is really what every team needs. Is they need a culture that everybody believes in and can rally around. And Jim's done a good job of that.
Isn't it crazy?
But you knew that's what it was going to be. That's what Jim did at San Francisco. That's what he did at Michigan. That's what he believes in. And he doesn't make any bones about it.
There you go. Bill Belichick asked about the Chargers. It's like, well, that's what Jim Harbaugh does. Jim Harbaugh said, look, we got a franchise quarterback, but we're going to get away from the flashy, throwing it up and down the field, trying to be the greatest show on turf. We're going to run the ball. We're going to play defense. Brian Callahan made a comment today, made a comment yesterday about the lack of possessions in the game. We scored on 4 of our 8 possessions, and when you score on half of your possessions, that's really right, because Jim Harbaugh wants to take the air out of the football. That's how Harbaugh plays. And Harbaugh, he made his point abundantly clear when he drafted Joe Alt. Basically saying, I know we got a quarterback, but we are going to be tough and physical and push you and run the ball and all of those things.
Especially when they brought in the OC from the Ravens.
Yeah, like we're going to run the ball. Remember, Floyd used to say, you want to get good in the NFL, the easiest way is to run the ball and play defense. And that's what Harbaugh wants to do. And I keep going back to the Chargers because, again, it's funny. The guy on the McAfee show asked the question, was like, it feels like we've been talking about the Chargers forever about having this good of a team. And now Harbaugh's there and they are this good of a team. And Belichick is sitting back saying, well, duh, that's what Harbaugh does. The bones were in place for the Chargers to be competitive. They were picking 5th in the draft last year. Every time I bring up, well, hold on, wait a minute. How come the Chargers were able to build themselves into a contender overnight? They spent $30 million in guaranteed money. How were they able to do this? And all I ever hear back from Titan fans is, well, they had Justin Herbert, Jared.
Quarterback and coach.
Right. Well, they had Justin Herbert last year, and they stunk.
Well, he
they
missed
lost
time.
to the Titans.
And they had a terrible coach.
Justin Herbert didn't miss time when they came into Nissan Stadium and lost. And you're right. They had a terrible coach.
Everybody knew that.
A terrible coach and a terrible general manager. They didn't know how to build a team. They just kind of, again, they weren't horrible drafting some of these guys because like Asante Samuel's good and Rashawn Slater is good. And so they're not incredibly, but these are the guys like Tom Telesco, the general manager. This is the guy who didn't win with Phillip Rivers and wasn't winning with Justin Herbert. Finally, they said enough with the clown show. We'd like to actually win with a good quarterback. Let's go get a real coach. And they went and got Jim Harbaugh. And I look at the Titans and I ask, why can't the Titans do the same thing? And I don't mean, why can't the Titans be the Chargers with Herbert? Because Herbert is a special quarterback. And I really love watching him play. He is a special player. And I understand you don't have that quarterback, and it's hard to find that quarterback. And that's why Harbaugh took that job. But you can get the clown show out of the building. You can get the talking about being great out of the building and go get somebody in here who is willing to be great, who knows what it takes to be successful. You know, it's funny. Everybody always asks me when I talk about how, if I ran the Titans, I'd burn it down. I would clean house. and I'd get an experienced football guy to come run the team, a la what Saban or what Belichick was just talking about. When Belichick was like, I mean, this is what Harbaugh does. He knows what he's doing. I'd go get an experienced football guy. And every time it's like, well, who are you going to get? Chris Sanders was saying that to me yesterday on the pregame show. I said, you're acting like there's none of these guys out there. Pete Carroll? I think Pete knows football. You mean to tell me that if the Tennessee Titans hired Pete Carroll to run the team today, and I'm not saying I would necessarily go hire Pete today, but I'm using Pete as the example. You think if they hired Pete Carroll, it would be this fluffery of, look at how good our team's going to be. All these general managers have texted me and told me how good all my picks were, only to fall flat on your face during the football season? Or do you think you'd actually have a solid team that can compete? You know as well as I do, Pete Carroll knows ball. What about Nick Saban? Nick Saban's out there. Nick Saban got out of college because Nick Saban didn't want anymore to deal with NIL and the transfer portal. And could you go to Saban, offer him $8 million a year, give him full control of the team, say, all right, Nick, you're the coach. By the way, you want to sell some PSLs? Hire Nick Saban, and you will sell your PSLs. Regardless of whether or not Saban was good with the Dolphins, like I'm telling you, Saban would get these. Rick Spielman in Minnesota, again, you want to be like the Vikings? You want Darisaw and Jefferson? You see what I'm saying? Like, and it's like almost people just ignore the fact that the Chargers were absolute dog crap last year when they had Brandon Staley, a moron, as their head coach. Tom Telesco, a general manager who, again, couldn't win with Phillip Rivers, couldn't win with Justin Herbert. And Phillip Rivers was good. Frank Reich won games with Phillip Rivers. And we know what we think of Frank Reich. So it just drives me crazy that it's like, well, you know, Belichick's sitting there. Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's Jim Harbaugh. And Jim has an identity and he's building a culture the way he wants it. All I ever hear about is how good things are inside the Titan building, how good the culture is, how great everything is. And yet, where's L'Jarius Sneed? Like, this quad injury, he's been out for a month. Where is he? The culture's so good. The Brett Kearns on Chasing Big Joe saying, yeah, I don't like the fact that the offensive linemen don't lift up the quarterback after he gets sacked. Instead, you got coaches talking about the Titan way. But it doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, they didn't want that type of coach. They wanted a new offensive kind of coach this time around.
I
don't know who won. I don't know if that's, you know, Carthon and
Harbaugh's
Brinker,
culture, like the
or if that
building
is
a
like
culture, is not about the style of offense you run.
No, I get it, but that's the type of, you want to, like, he's doing like a malarkey kind of thing.
I know.
Yeah,
and they're over. The malarkey thing worked,
and the Titans are over the malarkey thing for whatever reason. I don't know who, but it's obvious they wanted to do something different.
Of course, you don't let Derrick Henry leave if you want to. Could you imagine if Derrick Henry was on that team, Jim Harbaugh showed up? He wouldn't let him leave. Like Derrick would say, like, hey, you know, I'd like to go somewhere else. I'd like to try to win a ring. I'd like to, and he'd barricade the door.
Yeah, maybe.
And he'd say, you're not allowed out. You know who I think Jim Harbaugh would love? I think he'd love Tannehill. Okay. I think that's his kind of quarterback.
I could buy that, I guess. Sure.
Now, granted,
he's not as talented as Herbert, but yeah.
No. Who can run the team. And I'm talking about, look, I don't, the GM, the way I would do it if I owned a team is the GM would run the team and hire the coach. That's just what I believe in. I do know there are multiple ways to skin a cat. And I do know that there are, you know, it works in San Francisco that the head coach is in charge. It worked for Bill Belichick in New England. It works in Kansas City. It works in LA with the Chargers that the coach is in charge. So I understand that. But I'm bringing in a football guy that, again, knows how to build. And Harbaugh's done that for the Chargers. And I think it was a message that he sent by drafting Joe Alt over Malik Neighbors, which was, Again, not the whole idea of, well, we think Alt's better, or this is who we're going to be. And I don't care who the quarterback is. This is who we're going to be. And I just love that about the Chargers. And the Chargers have signed guys, bottom of the free agent barrel, and they've come in and they've played well because Harbaugh and his guys know how to coach. And instead here, you're just making up slogans. The Titan way. Oh, oh, the Titan way. By the way, it should be noted the Chargers, they were obsessed with their analytics. That was what Brandon Staley was so smart with when they hired him. Analytics. Yeah, they don't care about that anymore. And now they're good. 615-737-1025. Okay, I promise your phones. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, 1025-106 for the game.
Second and 10. Herbert lost the football. It's loose.
Right now it's a fumble. No whistle. And it is returned all the way by Roger McCreary. Yeah, it looked like Jeffrey Simmons. He goes in, gets the strip sack.
A fumble recovered by Tennessee for a touchdown.
Let's take a look. He's going against Zion Johnson. Herbert steps up. Oh, that's a fumble.
They were smart to not blow the play dead. They let it go. Simmons, the sack, the forced fumble, and the return for a touchdown by McCreary. Welcome back. It has been ruled an incomplete pass, no turnover, no touchdown. Dean Blandino, do you agree?
I agree. It doesn't have to be an overhand pass. Herbert's arm gets hit, but he's going to actually, you can see control. Once that hand starts forward, that starts the forward passing motion. That's a good overturn. Officials did a nice job letting it play out on the field, and then you have the video to be able to tell that the hand did come forward with control.
Explanation you got on the overturn call, and what were your thoughts on it?
I thought it was going to stand on the field. They initially told me that it was going to stand, and they took another look at it as I walked away. And then as I came back, they told me it was going to be overturned. And that was all the explanation I got. I'll let you guys decide what you think the call should have been, but I don't want to lose any money.
Brian Callahan says, I'll let you guys decide, not me. Not going to stand up for what I think is actually right, which was an opportunity for him that I think he missed. Like, would you pay $50,000 to have your team sit there and say, yeah, coach has our back? And I guess in this case, the answer is no. So I have the rule in front of me. According to the NFL Football Operations Manual, forward movement of the hand, quote, when a player is in control of the ball and is attempting to pass it forward, any intentional forward movement of his hand starts a forward pass. If, after intentional forward movement of his hand, contact by an opponent materially affects the passer, causing the ball to go backwards, it is a forward pass regardless of where the ball strikes the ground, a player, an official, or anything else. After an intentional forward movement of his hand, the passer loses possession of the ball during an attempt to bring it back towards his body. It is a fumble. Now, if you remember the tuck rule with Tom Brady, that is what that is referring to. So if you go forward with the ball and you're trying to tuck it back, you pump fake and then you're trying to bring it and the ball comes down, fumble. 3, if the passer loses possession of the ball while attempting to recock his arm, it is a fumble. Again, what they're saying is any forward movement of the hand is a forward pass. But if you're trying to pump fake and the ball comes out, it's a fumble. Now, in this case, I think it's clear as day because I think Jeffrey Simmons hits the arm. The hand is going backwards. Well, does that count as the moment where we say, okay, well, that's an act of a forward pass? But again, Dean Blandino said it was a great call. Shocker. I know. But the NFL's got a serious problem on their hands because I think that was a bad call. I didn't complain when Josh Dobbs, his hand was clearly going forward, but there was wiggle in the ball. And because there was wiggle in the ball, they said it was a fumble, even though, Ian, how far did the Dobbs ball go? I want to say it went like 15 yards up the field.
It looked pretty similar to the Herbert situation.
It was a DB. And in the case of the Titans, it was McCreary, a DB. It was a DB that picked it up and ran it into the end zone for a touchdown. I think it was Arden Key that hit him. But again, that ball went forward. How is that not a forward pass? But this one is. And so, when the Tom Brady tuck rule thing happened, I actually thought that was a good thing for the NFL because the rule was black and white. Even though Brady was going to bring the ball back in, it was obvious he wasn't going to throw it. And Greg Biekert stripped it. And Charles Woodson stripped it and Greg Biekert recovered it. Even though that's what happened, the rule was the arm's going forward. If the arm's going forward, it's a pass. Black and white. Was it going forward? Yes, it was going forward. Forward pass. Now, the NFL has a rule that is so subjective. If, after intentional forward movement of his hand, contact by an opponent materially affects the passer, causing the ball to go backwards, It is a forward pass regardless of where the ball strikes the ground, a player, an official, or anything else. When a player is in control of the ball and is attempting to pass it forward, any intentional forward movement of his hand starts a forward pass. So how was Josh Dobbs against the Jags not a forward pass? And I'm not so worried about this game because, again, I think even if you had scored the touchdown, you still would have lost. Your team stinks. Their team doesn't. So I'm not too worried about that. But this is going to be a bigger problem for the NFL in a much more serious moment. And when you have ambiguity, it makes it really hard for people to believe in the product. And I'm just going to tell you what I think, and I could be a total conspiracy theorist about this. I could be wrong. I could be whatever you want. But I believe that the NFL decides whether or not it's a forward or pass or a fumble based upon what they want the outcome to be. They wanted Trevor Lawrence in the playoffs on TV over Josh Dobbs and that ragtag Titan team in 2022. And they got their wish. Again, I don't think the NFL is fixing games, but it's just like, we want this NBA series to go 6 games. Let's send Scott Foster into ref. Just like, again, a playoff game later that year, 3 weeks after that Josh Dobbs fumble, there was a playoff game in the divisional round between Buffalo and Cincinnati. And in that playoff game, Cincinnati had a lead in the fourth quarter, and it was starting to get away. And all of a sudden, Josh Allen throws a pass, and it's fumbled, and the Bengals get it, and the game is over. And yet, they go to commercial. They're going to review it. They come back, incomplete, Bills ball. Because the NFL likes close playoff games more than they like blowout playoff games. And then yesterday, again, I don't think it was like some big conspiracy, but I think it was like, you know what? Let's just... Herbert couldn't have fumbled that ball. Incomplete. If that had been the other quarterback, if that had been number 8 for the Titans that did that, I'm not sure they would have gotten that call. And the NFL can't have that. I understand one guy's strike zone might be different than another guy's strike zone. But what we can't have is if the glove is in the vicinity of the base, but the base is blocked by the sun and the runner ends up putting his hand. No. If the guy's hand is on the base before the glove tags him, he's safe. Everybody can understand that. The NFL's got to do that with this. Or else it's going to happen in a Super Bowl, and it's going to be a nightmare for the league. And Floyd used to always tell me, he said, look, the NFL's great. It's the number 1 TV product in the world. But the second you lose the fans' integrity in the game, the belief of integrity, he goes, that's when you become pro wrestling. So what happened yesterday I thought was ridiculous. And the league has got to make the rule more black and white. It's got to be more, yes, fumble. No, not a fumble. Not this, guys on TV are like, oh my God, that's a fumble. And then they go to commercial and they huddle up and they say, okay, here's what we're going to say on TV when we come back because this is what we want. Okay. Dean, get out there. There was a clock issue years ago. This might have been like 5 years ago. The Titans played the Colts. And there was a clock issue. And Gene Steratore ripped those referees 8-way to the Sunday on CBS. And I was like, damn, Gene. Like, Gene was giving him the business. And then they came back from commercial break. And Gene explained how he had erred on that. They kind of showed how the sausage was made with the Damar Hamlin thing. Where the NFL replay truck is talking to John Perry, who was the referee in the booth for ESPN, and they said, we're going to have a 5-minute warm-up and then we're going to play. So John Perry relays that to Troy Aikman and Joe Buck. Joe Buck says it on TV, and the NFL comes out and says, we never said that. And Joe Buck, because he's got credibility, Joe's like, yes, you did. And here's how it all came out. And it's like, oh, so the replay booth is talking to the referees that are supposed to be, again, analysts. They're in the bag. And I thought it was stupid. Gordon says, maybe I'm dumb, but what part of that rule is anything other than the arm is going forward? It's a forward pass. Well, the ones that say, like, if he tries to recock the ball, and tries to pump fake, then it's not. Well, how do you make up that decision? I'll never forget when the Tuck rule happened. PTI had just launched, and there was a question for Wilbon, and they had asked, yes, the rule is the rule, but should the officials be allowed to change the rules? And Wilbon said, if you let officials start making calls on the field like that, you're going to find an official that's got 50 grand on the game. And I think he's right. It's got to be more clear. And I just thought that yesterday was awful. Awful. 615-737-1025, Preds game day. There is a Preds game tonight. That is coming up. Plus, a little movie that they made yesterday. We'll get to that coming up. Stillman and Company, 1025 the game.
It's hockey night in Smashville.
Walk over to Yossi. His one-timer, he scores!
Bringing you the keys to victory and the latest storylines surrounding the Nashville Predators. This is Predators Game Day, now on Stillman and Company.
Predators Game Day is presented by TJ Anderson Homes and Benchmark Realty, online at tjandersonhomes.com. Get your house seen, heard, and sold with TJ Anderson. That's my realtor at tjandersonhomes.com. Predators tonight against the Colorado Avalanche. Puck drop at 8 o'clock right here on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. The Avs are 7-8-0. That's good for 14 points. Predators 5-9-1, good for 11 points. They took one step forward on Saturday. They need to avoid taking a step back tonight. They need a winning streak, and this is the big, long road trip that they need to dig themselves out of this hole. They need a victory tonight against the Avalanche, and the news of the note today, or at least the note today, is that yesterday Dante Fabro was placed on waivers by the Predators and was claimed by the Columbus Blue Jackets. So, Ian, I have been saying for a couple of weeks I never want to see Dante Fabro play for the Predators again.
Well, I guess you got your wish.
I got my wish. The Traylon Burks of the Predators is now a Columbus Blue Jacket. And I'll just say this about Fabro. Fabro showed up in 2019 fresh out of college, and he showed, some real promise that he could develop into a good top 4 defenseman, and he never got 1 ounce better. He is the same player today that he was then. But again, I'm not too worked up about, he was a first-round pick and it didn't work. I'm not too worked up in that. We kind of knew that. I've known that for a while. They do get the cap savings back, which is important. Shea Weber and David Poile go into the Hockey Hall of Fame. Congratulations to them. That's happening as well tonight. So I'm sure they'll talk a lot about that on the broadcast as well. That does it for us. The Commodore Hour is next. Pre-game with Robbie is at 7 o'clock. Stillman and Company. We'll see you all tomorrow at 2.